Parks Commission meeting of August 31st. First item on the docket is public comment. We have one member of the public who wishes to speak while she's finishing that slip. Any member of the public may address the Historic Landmarks Commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject that is not on the agenda today. Ms. Self.
I would think to use more than
Mr. DeForest? Mr. DeForest, could you please keep quiet?
Happy to be counted a member of the public. Yeah. What I wanted to talk about, I've heard from a few of you that you were wondering about when council saw the De Guerra Plaza. That was not a voting item. I don't know why it came to us first. Usually the process, it goes to you and then comes back to us. But my understanding was some of the members were under the impression that it got our blessing. They didn't ask for our blessing. There were a lot of concerns about the project, which we know you'll be able to address very well. But I just didn't want you to think that we said yes, so now you had to work within those confines.
Okay.
It's your baby.
Appreciate that, Ms. Self. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I apologize I can't stay longer. We're off to another meeting.
We know how that is. Seeing no other members of the public, I will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of August 17th. We have a motion by Boucher, second by Lavoie. Under discussion, Commissioner Arias, microphone, please. Microphone.
Oh, sorry about that. I have some concerns about the minutes for the
Could we have quiet in the audience, please?
page 8 regarding the plaza. The chair usually goes down the line and commissioners react or give their opinion on things, which is fine. But by the time they get down here, if the opinion has already been said twice, I'm not going to repeat it. The issue has been covered. I'm not going to repeat it. And I think it gives the applicant misinformation to look at the minutes and say one commissioner does this, two commissioners did that, one commissioner, two commissioners. I think it would be better if things were reworded in another way as to not give the applicant an opinion or an impression that he has support of a certain number of commissioners or he does not have support of a certain number of commissioners. So I would like to see these reworded to indicate that it was open. It said, it was not set. And there was no vote taken on any of these items. It was just worded. And I think, as I said, it's a disservice to the applicant. It may give him an impression that is not correct.
Perhaps a better way to word it would be to say something like the majority of the commissioners supported such and such, or a minority of the commissioners weren't in support, or something to that effect, rather than quantify that number. Is that okay with staff? Well, I know that's what we usually do. I say, one member.
Majority is a problem. Then that means that
well, if the majority of the commission supports it, then there is support for it.
But then you have to take a vote, don't you? Wouldn't
Not
you have
necessarily.
to take a vote?
Not necessarily.
Okay, I'm sorry. You wanted to speak.
Mr. Limon.
I think Mr. Arias raises a valid point. One could get the impression that a minority of the commission felt the issue was unresolved, where the majority might feel the same, likewise. So it would be important to look at those comments and indicate if a majority of the commission agrees with those statements. Otherwise, it would lead the applicant to believe that it was just a minority opinion.
Okay.
The end result also will be that every time an issue is brought up, if I'm on the end of the thing, I've got to cover every issue that's been made. Otherwise,
Mr. Chair, the other way to resolve it is just eliminate the identification of how many commissioners and see if you can support the actual statement as part of your minutes.
Okay, sounds good. Commissioner Drury.
Page Section 8, under B, two commissioners stated that the period of significance is the present and support a design that would change the historic nature of the plaza.
Could you repeat where you are?
Oh, page 8?
Yes.
Was I running a little quick there?
No?
Okay. Section 8, B, under historic nature. Two commissioners stated that the period of significance is the present and support a design that would change the historic nature of the plaza. It would not support a design. It should say and, between and support should say would not.
If the period of significance is in fact the present, and that's what those two commissioners are saying.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right. So that should say would not support a design that would change the current historic nature of the plaza.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Jury. Anyone else? Mr. Sharp?
No comment?
Oh, I thought you had some comments.
No.
No? Okay. I did. Commissioner Murray?
Let me just get a clarification. So we are going to remove the quantification of that. Is all throughout all the comments?
I think going forward we're going to
Okay.
be doing that. I don't think we're going to go back through these.
Unless you see something where you should identify that the majority of the commissioners feel this way. They should send some direction more solid. If you see anything quantified that you think the majority of the commission agrees with, then you should clarify that now for the record.
Does anyone have any?
Yeah, well, I have a particular,
There's a lot of them.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of them, and I have a, like, for instance, like number 9, parking is under a B. The two commissioners believe that although the vehicular access is necessary, parking at the plaza is not necessary at all. Well, I was supporting no parking, so was I just the only two, or were there more, or I don't know. Anyway.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Commissioners, I know Gabriella went through the review of the Plaza de la Guerra with a fine-tooth comb, because even in my notes, handwritten, as fast as I can write, everybody was all over the board
Yeah.
on every issue. So she was going back and listening and listening and listening to who was in favor of this, and this person supported this, and it took her a long time to do that
Yeah.
specific one, and she was trying to be as accurate as
Yeah.
possible.
And I suggest that we leave these minutes as recorded at this point, but going forward, as Ms. Arias said, we shouldn't necessarily quantify number of commissioners in support or not in support.
Well, what I would also advise is that if you don't summarize the motion, you're leaving the summary to our admin staff, and they're doing the best they can to summarize the opinions
Yeah.
that were expressed.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes it would be best to also agree with people's statements. I agree with Commissioner LaVoie's
Right.
concerns, and that would also give you that positive affirming that you agree
Okay.
with that position.
Okay. Is it acceptable then to everybody to leave the minutes for this item number 3 as is? Excuse me, number 5 as is. Okay. Then we'll,
I somewhat think that it's misleading. It's sort of like every one of these things is one or two commissioners as opposed to the consensus. What was the consensus of the commission?
yeah.
Period. I mean, it's hard to read this and know what our consensus was. Or that there was one.
Yeah.
Well,
If you listen
the
to
chair should have summarized the consensus and tried to reach a consensus so that the applicant has a clear direction. I mean, this is not a clear direction to an applicant at all. They can take out of this whatever they want or nothing. Nothing as far as I'm reading.
Okay. Then maybe what
I know that's what was said.
Yeah. And we were all over the board, so there was no consensus. Would the commission like to table this acceptance of the minutes and suggest language for the next meeting?
Leave it as it is, but just be very careful in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody's okay with leaving it as is? Yep. Fine.
Yes.
Great. Okay, moving on. Anyone else have any additions, corrections?
I have
You're not a commissioner. Mr. DeForest.
Yes.
Please sit down. Mr. DeForest.
Thank you.
No, sit down in the audience, please.
Oh, I'm
This
sorry.
is not no. This is not public comment. You are not a commissioner.
I am misquoted in my my comment on item 10.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of approval of the minutes as read? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consent. Ms. Gantz?
Commissioner Chair Suding, item A, 2300 De La Vina Street was final approval as submitted. Item B, 710 State Street was indefinitely postponed at the applicant's request. Item C, 303 West Cabrillo Street was final approval as noted with conditions. Item D, 200 East Cabrillo Street was final approval as noted. Item E, 1704 State Street was final approval as submitted. Item F, 12 East Montecito Street was final approval as noted. Item G, 210 West Cabrillo Street was continued 2 weeks. Item H, 739 State Street was final approval as submitted. And item I, 31 East Pedregosa Street was forwarded up to the full board at 4 p.m. this afternoon.
I'm sorry, which item was that?
Item I at 31 East Pedregosa Street.
Thank you.
And those were reviewed by Commissioner Sharp, except item C, which was reviewed by Commissioner Suding.
Question,
Ms. Arias?
question of staff. Can you forward something up to the board without having it on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Motion to ratify the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion by Lavoie and second by Arias. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is announcements.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Schallenberger will be absent from today's meeting. Item 2, sign application for Santa Barbara Bank and Trust at 20 East Cabrillo Street has been postponed 2 weeks at the applicant's request. Therefore, items 3 through 7 will be heard approximately 1/2 hour sooner than stated on the agenda. And I was just going to say I had added that item I pulled up for 4 p.m. I already announced that, so that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Gantz.
To continue item 220 East Cabrillo Street, the applicant's request.
I'll second that.
Have a motion by Boucher, second by Sharp. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any other announcements?
I do have one, and that is that the California chapter of the American Planning Association, APA, is hosting its annual conference at the Fest Parker Resort for 3 days starting September 11th. This conference rotates every year and will not return to the Central Coast until 2019. They expect over 1,000 professional planners from around the state to take advantage of 75 conference sessions, nationally renowned keynote speakers, mobile workshops, and over 200 exhibits, networking activities, and special events. And a group of 4 architects and a developer from Santa Barbara are putting together one of the workshops on design review and the success that Santa Barbara has attained over the past almost 100 years. And to learn more about it, you can go to calapa.org.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharp. 2 announcements I wanted to make. Want to express my continued admiration and thanks to staff for putting together comprehensive minutes, keeping us on track. I think they're doing a wonderful job. I know it's a hard job to do. I'm sitting up here and trying to corral a bunch of things. So staff, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. Gabriella, Susan, Jaime, thank you very much. Also want to remind commissioners to please keep paper wrestling to a minimum during presentations and questions. Any subcommittee reports?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Arias.
The committee met on the historic element, incorporating goals we continue to work on goals, and we started to incorporate policies into the goals. And we will be meeting again very soon.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Commissioner LaVoy? On August 19th, I believe it was, 18th or 19th, Commissioner LaVoy and I met with the Victoria Theater design group and hammered out some possible solutions, I believe, which many of which you will be seeing today. Commissioner Drury was also kept abreast of those, although I neglected to invite him to the meeting, and I apologize profusely for that. So that was seen on August 19th, and we'll be seeing that project today. Anyone else? Subcommittee reports? Okay, then I'll move on to the first item of the agenda, which is item number 105 Ontario Hills Lane. This is to hold a public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution to recommend to City Council that the structure known as the Frederick H. Booth House be designated as a city landmark. Staff, Mr. Lamone.
Mr. Chair, Historic Landmarks Commission, today we're going to hold a public hearing to consider the potential adoption of a resolution to recommend to City Council that the Frederick H. Booth House at 105 Ontario Hills Lane be designated a city landmark. This is one of the last staff reports that our historian prepared, Jake Jacobus, and I'm going to walk you through some of the information that was presented as part of the historic structures reports that was submitted to this commission in 2005 that identified the structures as worthy of landmark designation. I know this is small print, but I'm going to walk you through some of the information that led to this designation. Back in 2004, as part of a 9-lot subdivision that was proposed for the city prepared an environmental review document, which included a mitigated and negative declaration. That part of environmental review disclosed that there was some historic resources on site, and that led to the preparation of a historic structures report that was accepted by this commission in March of 2005. The mitigated negative declaration was also distributed for public disclosure, which identified some of the mitigation measures called for, which included eventually a condition of approval that the Planning Commission approved as part of the tentative subdivision map, that conditioned that the project owner apply for and not oppose a recommendation by the Historic Landmarks Commission to have the existing Adobe residence designated as well as the garage. It also talked about an existing residential cottage that qualified as a structure of merit. That is not being proposed today. This structure has a very open feel because it's part of a large subdivision. The lots were, I think it was over 14-acre site that was divided into 9 lots. This home actually is on approximately 5 acres, I believe, one of the largest sites. It is a Spanish colonial Mexican period adobe home and has retained much of its integrity, and it qualifies under several criteria for city landmark designation. This commission felt that it had the sufficient amount of character and integrity to initiate the designation, and that was part of your motion in 2005 that be initiated. So as you can see, some of this really is unique for this type of style in the city. Here we have the detached garage also as being part of partly proposed for designation. These are the findings of significance. It has character, interest, a significant part of heritage of the city, state, and nation. It exemplifies a particular architectural style, which is important to the city. It also follows criteria for it being greatly influenced by the heritage of the city and the state and nation. It also embodies elements demonstrating outstanding attention to architectural design, detail, materials, and craftsmanship. And it's a unique location of a singular physical characteristics representing establishment of the mere visual feature of a neighborhood. We are proposing designation boundaries around the perimeter of the structure, 5 feet around the structure and the garage. And this is roughly the areas where the designation will occur. The Historic Structures Report did not identify critical landscape areas. They felt that the integrity was not really in place, so we are not proposing any landmark historic gardens or trees to be designated. So today's recommendation is to have the Commission adopt the Resolution 2011-01 and forward this landmark designation request to the City Council for consideration. We do have some public comment today.
Do we have any applicant presentation?
No.
Okay. All right.
The property owner would like to speak.
Yes, of course. Okay, we have a letter here from Theodore. I'm opening public comment, by the way. We have a letter here from Theodore H. Smythe, Jr., who is the owner of 105 Ontario Hills Lane.
He will be speaking as part of the public
He
comment.
has submitted a letter, and I believe all of you have a copy of that letter. Next person to speak is John Woodward, and that will be followed by Theodore Smythe. Or Smith, I'm sorry. Smythe. Okay. Would you like the owner to go ahead? You are first, Mr. Woodward.
Good afternoon. My name's John.
Have a seat, and let's get you mic'd up there.
I'm here as an individual today. And,
Welcome.
I'm here. I was requested to provide my perspective to the Commission because of an unusual nexus between my background in historic preservation and this particular property. I served on this commission for 8 years, as some of you know, and I was chairman. I also participated in the major redraft of the ordinance that you designate landmarks under in 1976. I currently serve on the County Historic Landmark Commission, of which I'm chairman. And the other part of the nexus is that I lived in this house for 20 years, and it belonged to my former wife. And I knew her mother, my mother-in-law, very well, spoke with her on many occasions about the history of the property because she knew my interest in historic preservation.
Excuse me, would you mind speaking up just a little bit? Or move closer to the microphone? I apologize. Yeah, there you go. That works for you. Appreciate it.
I looked through the Historic Structures report that Post Hazeltine did in 2005. I moved out of there in 1998, so all of this occurred after. Those pictures, by the way, are probably 2005 because it doesn't look like that now. There's quite a few changes. I went through the structures report. I'm very familiar with the criteria in the ordinance. And in my opinion, I have to say flat out that I don't think this building qualifies under the ordinance, and I don't think it qualifies under any of the criteria. I think the reasoning in there is really a bit of a stretch. It's quite a big stretch. There's a statement in there that it possibly could have been the design of A.B. Harmer because there was some connection. It doesn't say what the source of that is with the caretaker's house up on the hill, that Harmer supposedly was involved with that. But there's no indication that Harmer was involved with the adobe. I spoke with Mrs. Booth many times. She told me that many times that she designed it along with the contractor, Romy Ortega, and never once mentioned Harmer. So I don't think Harmer had any connection whatsoever with the house or the garage. So, but the report says it's possible. But I don't think that's a valid criterion for a landmark, that it's possible. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that in my 40 years of being involved in historic preservation, I've always been concerned, and I've noticed this right from the beginning, that to me historic preservation has to have public support to succeed. And to get public support, we have to avoid the appearance of being arbitrary and capricious, which sometimes happens. And over the years, I've seen more harm done to historic preservation because it alienates the public against preserving a property when it's perceived as being arbitrary and capricious. I think in this case there's a danger of that because this is not strongly historic. There's Not anybody important associated with the property or the house. There's no important architect. Nothing important happened there.
You're not important? You're associated. Sorry.
It's not even visible anymore from anywhere, from the street. There is a screening wall in front that doesn't appear in the pictures that hides it from the new cul-de-sac that's there. And it never was visible from public view. And it's been quite a bit modified. The whole, everything done under permit, the new dressing room, bathroom wing was totally rebuilt. The kitchen on the interior has been totally changed to a modern kitchen. And there are other structures that have been added. The only thing that might be a little different about that house is that it uses adobe. Of course, there are hundreds of houses in Santa Barbara that have adobe, but there's as much concrete and steel in that house. It's concrete and steel foundation, posts on either side of every opening, and a bond beam around the eave line. So there's a lot of concrete and steel, and the adobe is a veneer in front of it.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay. So my point is that I don't think there's anything there that really argues strongly for it being a landmark. I didn't see it in the report. I have no firsthand knowledge of that. It is my belief that it does not warrant being landmarked. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming today. Appreciate that. Next is Theodore Smythe.
Thank you. As I said, my name is Theodore Smythe. I'm the owner of 105 Ontario Hills Lane.
Welcome.
Apparently now known as the Frederick Booth House. Could be the Theodore Smythe House or the John Woodward House or
go.
Betsy Chase House or any of the other prior owners. I don't know whether members of the commission have had a chance to read my letter. I submitted it to Mr. Lamone a few days ago. So, and John has done an excellent job of summarizing many parts of it. I do want to go through the bullet points. Obviously, I'm opposing the recommendation for many of the reasons that John just mentioned. The bullet points A through K I took right out of the municipal code in an answering to them point to point. So I'll just briefly review them. There is no record of this house being a significant part of the heritage of the city of Santa Barbara. There is no record of any historic event taking place on this house, on this site. There's no identification with any person who has significantly contributed to the culture and development of the city. This is not Tom Stork's house, or this is not Mayor Bloom's house, or this is not anybody that special lived there at one, except for Mr. Woodward, who chairs some of these committees. The house is constructed using concrete, tile, wood, stone, and adobe as a veneer, as are many homes in the Santa Barbara area that are not designated as landmarks. The neighborhood is, eclectic, I think, is probably a good use of the description. 60s and 70s tract homes, sizes of parcels from a quarter acre to 40 acres. There's really no uniformity. And this house is one of all of those that were part of it. It was designed and built by a general contractor, the best of our knowledge. The contractor's brother signed the plans. I think he was an engineer. There's no record of any other important structures that he has designed. There's no relationship between this house and any other historical landmark. In other words, it's not next to the Granada Building or the Morton Bay Fig Tree. It's got no nearby historical landmarks. Up until now, it's been on 15 acres, hardly visible at all from Ontario Road, which was the only road going by it. There's no archaeological events that we're aware of, and it's a private house. It's got nothing to do with the people of the city of Santa Barbara. There's no public benefit. It's not a stagecoach stop. It's not the bathhouses down at the beach. There's no public interest as far as I'm aware. As John mentioned, and I'll wrap it up with this, the only part of this house that I think that is even of interest to you all is that it is adobe veneer. There's a number of houses, obviously, in Santa Barbara that are adobe veneer. It's a good-looking house. It was well built. It was built in a style that everybody in Santa Barbara appreciates. It's not particularly old by our standards in Santa Barbara. It's 72 years old. There's certainly a lot of structures here that are a lot older. Built in 1939. So I'm not sure that in and of itself makes it historical. And as the owner of the property, I would like to oppose the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smythe. We appreciate you coming.
Mr. Chair?
Seeing no other public, I'll close public comment.
Yes.
Okay,
That I
bring it
would
back.
like to have the property owner explain to the commission why there was no opposition to the condition of approval that was placed on the property by the Planning Commission in 2005, which stated that owners shall apply for and not oppose a recommendation by the Historic Landmarks Commission to the City Council for the designation of existing Adobe residence.
Yeah, I think that this is an important part. Is this on?
Yes.
I was not the owner of the property at that time. The owner of the property at that time, I believe, was the developer that the city and the county was in negotiation with, if you will. I've got the grant deed for the house and my title report on the house. I think I took ownership sometime in 2006, so I have to go take a look at the time.
Mr. Smythe, we have a report prepared for Tad Smythe in 2005 with your name on it. So that the proposed alterations that Mr. Woodward Smith spoke about were also reviewed by this commission in late 2005,
Right.
which were proposed and were accepted with mitigation measures. So
I'm not sure I understand. I prepared that report at the request of this commission.
And this report identified you as the property owner at the time, so you had the ability to come before this commission in 2005 and also disagree with the recommendations outlined in this report, which identified the historic significance of the property, which this commission accepted.
Okay, I don't think that I was a property owner at that time, but I think that I can go back and take a look at the my
Your name is on the
deed of
document.
trust. Oh, no doubt, I had to pay for that report.
Yeah. Mr. Smythe, what it does is it puts us in a somewhat uncomfortable position because we've accepted a report, and now we have to go back and sort of reverse that report. And that's
I'm not sure that anything that you'll do today would be reversing that report.
well, we adopted the recommendations of that report, and that report is recommending that we have a public hearing to designate this as a landmark. Do you understand that chain of events?
I understand what the report says.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask for questions from the commission. Does the commission have any questions? Commissioner Drury.
That's the owner. Why are you opposing this designation?
Well, number one, there's several reasons. I think that it restricts my property rights. It restricts what I can and can't do with the property. It restricts future owners' property rights, which I have no, knowledge of what a future owner may or may want to do with the property. I think, as John said in his mention, that a capricious use of historical landmark designation lessens the significance of the other buildings that are historically landmarked. I don't think that it falls under the category of, say, a Maddie's Tavern or a Granada building or some other, building that is obviously a key factor in the historical, nature of Santa Barbara. It's a private residence, so it's got nothing to do with any of that.
Commissioner LeBoy, any questions?
If since this was a condition of approval for the subdivision by the Planning Commission, if we do not proceed with this designation, will that invalidate the subdivision?
Commissioner LeBeau, I do not believe so. What it really does is puts the designation question in motion. And there was a clearly intent as part of the subdivision and the mitigation measures that identified these resources. And the eventual outcome was that a designation hearing would be held ultimately at City Council. So you could recommend that it's moved forward and that Council adopt it, but ultimately Council could decide not to adopt the resolution to landmark.
Commissioner Murray, any questions? No, no questions. Commissioner Sharp?
None.
Commissioner Boucher? Commissioner Ramirez, no questions. Okay, how about any comments from the commissioners? No comments?
My only comment is that this was a condition of approval, and that directs us to go ahead with this.
Right. Commissioner Murray, I would appreciate comments from you.
Yes. When we review this structure report, the original one in February 2005, it met not only the criteria for a landmark in the city, but it also it also was eligible under criterion 3C under the California Register of Historical Resources, and also criterion B, eligible for National Register of Historic Places. Now, these kinds of reports are thoroughly done. I just take issue with the word capricious. There is nothing in the actions that's capricious. The people who prepare these reports are registered with the state of California. In other words, they do a thorough report and it comes to us. Now, one of the reasons the owner says he's opposing the landmark is he says there is no record of this house being of a significant part of the heritage of the city, the state, or the nation. Now, a record includes the house. You look at the house and you evaluate all of its character-defining features, and you rate it all along to see what are the character-defining features of the house. I had read that report, original report, very thoroughly, and I was very convinced that this house is rare. I challenged owners to find a house like this in Santa Barbara. There really is none, especially that time in 1939 where they were mixing different kind of materials. And even though it's 72 years old, it's over the 50 years mark, which is the criteria for assessing historic resources. Whether the building was designed by a famous architect, that is one important thing. But in and of itself, it could be designed by a regular contractor. But if the findings were made on the actual physical parts of the house as it stands and meets the criteria, it is nonetheless a landmark. And in my mind, it is a landmark, and that's why I'm supporting this resolution.
Okay. Anyone else? What is the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lavoie.
I'm also uncomfortable with this late in the process having an objection from the owner, as a subdivision was granted to him based on this condition. The objection should have been raised then and dealt with then. It should have been raised when the report was brought to us. And now it's sort of like years later, and where you're sort of complying to what gave you a use of your property, and now the objection comes a little late in the game. So I would second the motion for...
We don't have a motion.
I'd make
yet.
the motion to...
Okay.
forward this on to City Council with a strong recommendation that it be amended.
I'll second that motion.
Do we have a motion by Lavoie, a second by Sharp?
Mr. Chair, if
Under
it could,
discussion, Mr. Lamone?
it's not only forward, but adopt the resolution.
Okay. Is the maker of the motion comfortable with that language change? Okay. Seconder?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is we are skipping actually item number 2, which was postponed. We are moving on to item number 3, which is 33 West Victoria Street. This is a structure of merit. It's the former First Baptist Church. This is the fourth concept review, comments only. The project requires City Council approval of a Public Works major encroachment permit for improvements within the Victoria Street right-of-way. It requires historic resource findings. The project was last reviewed August 3rd, 2011. Yes, please. I think that's all yours. Okay, the last comments were, as I said, August 3rd. The Commission made the following comments on the sidewalk extension and the new landing at Victoria Street entry. The majority of the Commission supports the Victoria Street right-of-way improvements in concept. The project is not quite there yet, and the proposed solution needs more study. The drop-off spaces in the front, as proposed, are inadequate and shall be conducive to drop-off in times of inclement weather. Reducing parking access to the neighbor to the east is not good neighbor policy. The curb radii should relate to some element or terminus on the site or streetscape. Study protecting the stair treads and risers from skateboard damage. Restudy the overall landscape along Victoria Street. Incorporate more landscape. Restudy the planting area behind the back of the sidewalk and back of curb. And then for the increase of height in the fly tower, several commissioners are still concerned about the height of the fly tower. At least one commissioner felt that the fly tower and and that the elevations are moving in the wrong direction. It was much more successful when it was proposed to be an imitation of the tower form with a three-party back breakup. The buttresses on both sides of the loading door should not exceed the width of the existing buttress. Continue studying the proposed arch over the loading dock doors. Applicant responded with informative reasoning for the fly tower height. There we have it. If you would make your presentation, state your names for the record, and make your presentation, please.
Jason Curry with PMSM Architects.
Welcome.
Manisha Adnani, PMSM Architects.
Welcome.
And Derek Weston on the board of Untitled.
You're not welcome. Just kidding. You're welcome. Welcome, Lord Derek.
It's all
welcome.
good. It's all good.
You know. You have to. Probably not. The phone would be ringing off the hook at this time.
Well, we've brought to you today a revised design. We've been working over the last few weeks on the comments that we got at the last meeting, and we've had the benefit of the subcommittee that was formed, and we really appreciate the guidance that we've got from Commissioners Signing and Lavoie and Susan Gant's help in organizing everything.
And as did Drury.
Not yet.
You provided some comments to me.
Oh, great. And over that same time period, we've been meeting with Public Works, city staff, and really working in their needs for the right-of-way improvements. I think that the design for both the fly tower and the right-of-way improvements have really greatly benefited by these meetings, and we're getting very close. We'd like today just to look at the design of the fly tower. We think that we need a little bit more time to work in the latest comments from city staff for the entry landing.
Okay, go ahead then.
Right. So I'd like to kind of flip between two pages here, if that's all right. The proposed elevations and some photos, details of the existing building.
Give us a page number.
So A301 and
A004.
The approach that we've taken to the design of the fly tower is one...
Could you wait until we flip the pages,
Sure.
please?
Everybody, nope.
Not yet.
Hold on, please. Okay. Everybody ready? Go for it.
All right. So our approach this time is to more closely observe the details of the existing tower and to really incorporate those details into the design of the proposed tower. So you'll see that we're taking the real nice proportions of pilaster to wall, to the arched opening, and the crenellation at the top of the tower. And everything is changed slightly in scale so that it's at the right scale for this tower, but it's observing the proportions. I'll just kind of turn back to the photo.
Would everybody like to turn back to the photos now? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Carey.
We're really closely taking this layout of pilaster to in the relation of a second sloped surface, and then getting to the window. So really, it's the same sort of detailing as this portion of the tower. In the design of the loading doors, we're taking kind of a combination of the stained glass window and the existing doors into the theater, just because of kind of the material quality that we'll need. So if we look back...
Could you actually put the microphone closer to your mouth, please? Okay, we're turning back to A301.
So we're really taking the same shape as the stained glass windows, but using the details of the material quality of the doors. It's got the same band that was in the stained glass windows, separating upper and lower portions. I'm showing the same sort of use of materials where we've got a painted brick as the base and a plaster above. And I think also the scale that we've set up and the portions are now also really working well with other kind of visual lines on the building. This line across here picks up at the sill of all the windows in the adjacent building, and the bottom of this little recess picks up at the roof line. If we continue around to the east elevation, the next sheet, A3.
Okay, everybody ready to switch to A302?
The east elevation is using the same details of the pilaster and the crenellation at the top, and the same material qualities. Maybe we can look at some of the updated view renderings now. So the next sheet.
We're changing to A011, excuse me.
This is a view from Chapala Street, looking just across the parking lot entry. This is where you see a lot of the tower in relation to the existing building. And I think you can see nicely now kind of either end of the building being anchored by the existing tower and the proposed tower. Okay. The next sheet, we have the view from Victoria Street. Here's the existing, and there's the proposed.
Okay, changing to A013. Hold off, please. Everybody on A013. Go ahead.
So this is a view from the intersection of Chapala and Victoria, and we really only see a tiny section of the building, in the little space between the tower and the other roof.
Changing now to A014.
This is a view from Chapala Street, further down towards the intersection with Anapamu. This was the view that we were studying the relationship of this proposed tower with the Arlington. This is the existing shot. There's a lot of trees on the street, so the view is broken up a lot by trees, but we kind of picked one where you could really see the relationship of the proposed to the existing tower.
Changing now to A015.
This is a view from Anapamu Street, straight across the parking lot. You can see the existing elevation, which is really rather plain, and the proposed here.
Does that conclude your presentation? Okay, we will open public comment then. I have one speaker. That would be Mr. Callum DeForest. Mr. Weston, if you would give up your chair, please, for Mr. DeForest. Don't forget your telephone. Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I gather the parking drop-off, taking away Victoria Street is not part of this, today's presentation.
That is correct.
And so what do you want me to do with the, I will then save the handouts that Councilwoman Self gave me on that issue, because she is concerned with that. I will save those till next, when that comes up. I thought one of the things your commission frowns on a little is piecemeal development. We do the tower, then we do the street, then we do something else, and then we do something else, and they really should all be considered as a whole because they all go together. I'm still not convinced that the tower has to be that high. But this design certainly looks better than the previous ones. It's just still, in my opinion, too tall.
Thank you, Mr. DeForest, and be assured that we will be looking at this as a package. We are not segmenting this into two different things, two different projects. They will not get approval for one without the other. Okay? Any questions from the commission? I'll close public comment and go to questions from the commission. Commissioner Arias, any questions?
No.
Commissioner Boucher? Sharp?
No.
Murray? Lavoie?
Yes.
Question?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Of the applicant, why aren't you showing us the site plan?
Mr. Chair, I can't hear his last sentence.
Of the applicant, why aren't you showing us the site plan?
We had a meeting with City Public Works staff just on Monday, and they had some comments that they wanted us to address the design of the layout of the street and the public right-of-way, and we haven't had a chance to get those comments addressed for this presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jury, any questions? Okay. I had one and I forgot. Okay. Comments from the commission? Commissioner Jury, any comments?
Yes. I'd like to thank you personally for getting those enclosures to me. And I guess since we're not addressing those particular enclosures, I'll just hold my comments until.
You may comment on the fly tower.
Not yet.
Okay. Mr. Lavoie?
I'd like to thank the applicant for working with us, and I think this is greatly improved.
Commissioner Murray?
I concur with Mr. Lavoie's comments.
Great.
Looks good to me.
Commissioner Sharp?
I concur with Mr. Lavoie also.
Okay. Boy, this is easy. Commissioner Boucher?
Ditto.
Okay. Commissioner Arias?
Same comments.
Great. Okay. Then I will summarize the comments and look for somebody to make a motion. Boy, this is greatly improved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, no, we're not making a motion.
No,
Sorry.
we're not
Just
making
comments
a
only. Okay. Comments only. Okay. Moving on to the next item.
We do really appreciate the process.
Sure.
It's really helped us a
Good.
lot.
I'm glad. That's what we try to do. That's why we're here.
How about a straw vote?
No.
No? No straws?
No straws.
I think we all
It
said
gets us
the
into
same
trouble.
thing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's about as straw as you're going to get.
Next item on the agenda is item number 4, 1118 East Cabrillo Boulevard. This is a structure of merit. This is a structure of merit. This is the Cabrillo, Pavilion, and Stoah. This has been referred up to the full board. Second concept review. A coastal exemption was approved on August 2nd, 2011. Project was last reviewed on consent October 17th, 2011. Thank you. Oh. Okay, this was continued with continue 2 weeks with the comment that the redesign of the gate shall be a more traditional, less utilitarian design. No.
We have,
Do you
actually,
plan?
we have them, and we can, do you want to see them? We've got 3.
No, let's see the new ones first,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, new ones first. And if you could state your names for the record and give us a brief presentation.
Sure. Jill Zachary, I'm the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation Department. I have...
Welcome.
Thank you. I have Kevin Strasberg, who's our park planning technician here.
Welcome.
And Rich Hanna, who's the facility manager for the bathhouse.
Welcome. Thank you.
So I would like to briefly give you the purpose of the project and the need for the project. We did...
Excuse me, Ms. Zachary, if you could put the microphone closer to your mouth and
How's that?
speak out loud.
Loud
and clear, please.
I'm usually pretty good at
You
that.
are.
So, Commissioner Sharp did already get an introduction when we were here on consent. So the project location is the bathhouse, and the area of the bathhouse that we're referring to is the promenade. The promenade is served by parking lots on the east and west entrance. There are currently bollards, removable bollards at both entrances, and that's really why we're here. It is a pedestrian safety improvement project that we are proposing for a number of reasons. The bollards...
Could I ask you to hold 1 second so I
Sure.
can flip the page so that we can get a close-up shot for the public? Sorry, Ms. Zachary.
Sure.
Hold on, please.
Point to where
Okay.
it is on the site plan.
All right. There we go. Continue, Ms. Zachary.
Okay. Do you want me to point?
Yes, please.
So here is the west entrance. Here's the east entrance. The 2 parking lots are located here and here, and the promenade is this area right here. The bollards are located here and located here, essentially where the parking lot ends and the promenade walkway concrete begins. These bollards are there to prevent unauthorized vehicle access, and also to reduce the potential for human-wheeled access bicycles and surreys from entering the promenade. Currently, they're in poor condition, and they are easily removed without permission. At times, they've created unsafe conditions for pedestrians. We recently had an accident there, which is now the subject of consideration by our risk management department, and we don't know how it'll be resolved. As a result, we got direction from the risk manager to install a permanent system to protect pedestrians. So this whole proposal is based on our assessment of what we would like to do there instead. We would like to install something more permanent. We are proposing to replace, there are 13 bollards there now. We're proposing to replace 13 removable, not all of them are removable, with 6 fixed and 2 gates, with the idea that the gates can be safely locked open or locked closed when there is authorized access only to the promenade for equipment. And usually that has to do with the restaurant, or it has to do with something that might be going on, activity at the bathhouse. We are also proposing, and we can walk through the plans and finish, 4 new bollards, because we have increased use of other areas of the promenade for wheeled access, which is increasing our safety considerations.
Is there a blow-up of those?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to turn the page.
So essentially, the west entrance, this area on the right, shows where the bollards are. If you look at photograph on
page 4,
that gives you an illustration of those bollards and the chain that connects them. 3 of them are fixed, and that's shown by these dark dots here on the plans. The other ones are removable. When they're removed, they're placed on the ground, and it also leaves a hole in the concrete. 2 situations that aren't the greatest if they're not being monitored and put back appropriately. I'm going to move on to this side.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So our proposal is to install 4 fixed bollards. You can see them here and here, and between the bollards, proposing a fixed rail. The idea is the fixed rail means there's not a straight shot through. We're also proposing here a 16-foot gate, and we'll get to the design work that we've done since the first meeting, that would be locked open, and when open would swing over to a fixed bollard and lock closed, lock open.
This is lock open. This is lock closed.
This is lock closed,
Gotcha.
closed, excuse me. This is lock open.
Gotcha.
The beach is here. The main promenade access is here. The 2 new bollards we're proposing are further up. You can see them with the black dots. And if the commission remembers, there used to be a parking kiosk. There's a photograph on page 7 which shows the parking kiosk on the east entrance. That has been removed by the waterfront department. So now we have an open concrete area which allows people in Surreys to jump the curb and scoot down the hill and enter the promenade. Because this area is used by people who park in the parking lot and go up to the pavilion, our proposal is only 2 fixed bollards, so it can still provide pedestrian access this way. So should we go to the east entrance and then go back to the design?
Okay.
The east entrance, you'll see page 7 of your photographs as well. It gives you the illustration of what it currently looks like right now.
Oh, hold on, please. Let me get that up on camera.
Oops. Oh, he's looking at it.
You want me on page 7, photo number 4.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right. My bad.
So this gives you a photograph illustration of what it currently looks like. The bollards are in a similar condition. Over here, it shows that we have these removable bollards, and then 2 fixed bollards here. This entrance is used less frequently for vehicles. It's really the other side where that's more likely to occur. At the same time, when we make the improvements, we want it to look seamless. So our proposal is to address both sides, and from a safety standpoint, these can just as easily be removed and create a hazard. So our proposal in this location, because the width of the entrance is 16 feet itself, and we still want to maintain some pedestrian access this way, rather than forcing pedestrians to go this way or having them walk through the planter. We're proposing a 12-foot gate and 2 fixed bollards with a rail in between. So pedestrians will still be able to go in when it's locked closed, and obviously if it's locked open, in theory, there's a vehicle there, so people wouldn't be walking through. They could still go that way. We are also proposing on this side 2 new bollards. In this location, this is the handicap access from the handicap parking, and then in this location we have people that ride bicycles up and around like this. So essentially it's in a location that still provides the appropriate ADA access, but does illustrate that that maybe people should think about slowing down, if nothing else, and hopefully dismounting their bicycle. The design, so that pretty much concludes what we're proposing, so I could go over the design now, if that's what you're ready for.
Great. Go.
Down here. So what we have on this sheet...
Hold on 1 second, please. Thank you.
What we have on this sheet is just the outline. We have some photographs and some hand drawings, sketches that we want to show the commission. The bollards themselves will be exactly like the other bollards we have at Cabrillo, at Chase Palm Park. 2 bollards were installed at the sidewalks. They'd be 3 feet high, including this finial. Nothing different than what we currently have in other city situations.
Excuse me, Ms. Ecker, do you have a photograph of what's
Yes,
in Chase Farm Park?
We have a photograph of what's was
Or-
recently installed as part of the sidewalk improvement project. Did you hand out the new photos? There's a second photo packet. Where's that? Okay, so it would be page 5 of the second photo packet that you
Okay,
have.
if I may steal this one and put it on the camera, go ahead.
So this just illustrates what's currently installed. We would do the same thing. We actually have a question for the commission. We proposed Malaga green since these are painted Malaga green, but the brown on the building is Padre brown, and whether we'd rather everything be Padre brown.
Okay. And quickly describe the gates.
So the gates themselves, when we were on consent and got feedback from Commissioner Sharp, there was concern that one gate would be 16 feet. So we redesigned the gate so that the structure itself would be 12 feet, but would have a 4-foot pole. This would be this would be at the west entrance. This is the designated width that the emergency services would like to have. This shows you the 12-foot gate that would be at the east entrance, and the sketches. We were asked to come back with some sketches that looked more appropriate for the building. Do you want to hand these out?
For the Pueblo Viejo district.
So your second photo packet, what we did is we went to the building itself and took photographs of details, existing details on the bathhouse. The photo on page 1 shows the gate that leads from the bathhouse up to the second-story deck. It has this detail. This was recently replaced, I believe, in the last couple of years, and came to this board for approval. This is the design that's on the windows, which shows similar design to also on the light stand. Oh, actually,
Oops.
the light.
Stay there.
Yeah.
Or
Let's
go
see, I
another
think
one.
page 4 shows you the light by the number associated with the building. And then page 3, which goes back, shows what was also approved for the self-pay stations in the parking lot. They're adjacent to the building. They're not on the building, but it kind of has a similar. I would like to indicate that waterfront departments told me that this will be removed in the next couple of years. So they are moving toward, as you may have seen in the waterfront area, the automatic stations. So these things, I think, will be removed. We put together 3 different sketches. Oh, and these photos show the one other maintenance gate at Chase Palm Park, which is different. It's a very low gate. It's not something that we were going to propose be for a similar design, but we wanted to show it to the commission.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation?
If I could just walk through these really quickly.
Sure.
We came up with 3 sketches that we wanted to show the commission. This is the first sketch of how the gate might be designed. If I could go to the next page, this is another version, which is a more simple version of how it might look. And then we have a third version, which takes sort of the original, more park gate design, maintains it, but adds this to it. And just in closing, I would like to say that we dropped the height of the bollards in the gate by 1 foot. So this is 3 feet. The height of the top rail of the gate would be 2 feet 6 inches, and then this would be 6 inches off the ground. So the scale has been dropped down as well from what we came with the concept. And that concludes our presentation.
Just one question, because I'm sure it's probably going to come up. Is this material round or square?
Round.
Commissioner, we'll actually open up public comment, and we have one member of the public who wishes to speak. Would you mind giving up your chair? Thank you. Mr. Kellum DeForest. Mr. DeForest. After you sit down, please don't forget to turn on the microphone, Mr. DeForest. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. Kellum DeForest. It would be interesting, and maybe you saw them and I missed them, what the original design was, as I recall, I don't think they were parking lots on either side of the pavilion. I don't think that was part of the original design. I know the intent was to keep the view and presence of the beach as was the important of this building, which was and is still designed as a beach, as a changing room for people to go to the beach. It was a bathhouse, and I know you have to try to keep people from going where they shouldn't, but I believe the use of gates detracts from the beach experience and is not part of the historic concept of when the pavilion was put in. It was built back in the 1920s. Also, any bollards should be as fade into the landscape as much as possible. Thank you.
Mr. DeForest. Next is Mary Louise Days. Ms. Days.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will repeat some of what Mr. DeForest said. This is an extremely important building built by David Gray and given to the city. Cabrillo Pavilion, the lower part, the bathhouse. My grandfather worked there, I think, when he worked for the park department. But when I first read this agenda item, I was very worried that there might be gates that would block or come between the building and the sand portion. It appears to me, looking at the plans, that they are strictly at either parking lot. I'd like to know where is the sidewalk that comes through the Stoah and comes in front of the building. Where is that in relation to the plans? Is there any interference at all in that?
No, there isn't.
Okay, it's just
It's
strictly where the
bollards
are.
Yeah, it's just so that you can see it. It is across that. So there's that Stoah of the promenade. It's there and there. It's not directly interfering with that. Okay?
Thank you. Or with the view from the beach.
No.
And I could not hear the answer when you asked if the gate structure would be round or square.
It would be round.
Round. All right.
Okay.
Well, I repeat what Mr. DeForest said, that if they can disappear as much as possible, and I do think that one of the more elaborate, but not over-elaborate designs is preferable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Days. We'll close public comment, bring it to the commission. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Drury?
Come back to me, please.
Okay. Commissioner Lavoie?
No questions.
Murray? No. Commissioner Sharp?
No questions.
Commissioner Boucher?
No.
Commissioner, whoa. Okay. Then comments, unless you had you formulated a question.
Is there sort of bollards and bulb outs? I'm generally not in favor of bollards, but I wondered if the stanchion or the support for the gate shouldn't be a little bigger. This may be anathema, but I think that the gates, I'm not so sure they should disappear. I think that they could be made to fit the building. That would be. Is that a comment or a question? Yes. Is there a possibility that the support bollard could be made bigger?
Just yes or no.
Certainly, the support bollard could be made bigger. We tried to design it so that it...
That's enough. Thank you. I'm not being rude. I'm just
I
trying
understand.
to keep things going.
So I guess then I would say that I like the idea. I too have a long history with the bathhouse. I worked there myself as I was a kid. I would like to see I believe the number one swing gate design, except I would...
Hold on one second. I'm going to flip to that, please. Is that it?
I would like to see that the design reversed, so that the top curves would then be on the bottom. I think that would be a more attractive.
So
thing anyway.
when you say reverse, you mean this should flip?
Just take that design
Gotcha.
and just flip it.
It's old enough.
Right.
I think it would be, if that was decided upon, I think that would be a more, Lord have mercy, would be a more attractive design. And I also, just for the record, would like to turn your attention to, just to remind ourselves, if I can find it, pages 11, 12, and 13 of the first enclosure. That's
Okay.
the photographs. Photograph number 10, photograph number 9, and photograph number 8.
So photograph 8.
Photograph 8, photograph 9, and photograph 10.
Okay.
How lucky we are to have such a building.
Okay.
There we go. That's my comment.
Okay. That was a comment.
2 cents.
Okay. I actually had a question. Was there a possibility, or is there a possibility, did you study using a different material other than steel, maybe wood, or is that just not in the cards for maintenance and the span and the longevity, all of that? Cars hitting it. Something just, a little bit more park-like, but certainly, WPA projects use galvanized steel. Okay. Commissioner Lavoie, any comments?
I think bollards, removable bollards, are a much better design, and more porous for pedestrians. The option would be to ban surreys, which I don't think is a bad idea. But the gate designs, if this was a mid-century modern building, they'd be perfect. It's not. It's a neoclassical building in the Spanish Renaissance style. The frame of the gate needs to have a traditional form, and that's what you're fighting. Just adding some curls to it does not make it Hispanic at all.
Anything else? Okay. Commissioner Murray?
I concur with those comments, and I have none.
Commissioner Sharp? Thank you. Sorry. Mr. Sharp, any comments?
Yes, I was concerned initially when it came before consent regarding the fact that the design was, and we talked about that at that time, a typical gate in Los Padres National Forest or almost any park you see around, and it's not, doesn't relate to the building or the promenade or the beach in any way, shape, or form, and I really feel that adding a few curlicues to that doesn't change that, certainly doesn't change my opinion. Backing up just for a little bit here, there are 18 newspaper racks up on Cabrillo Boulevard in our new sidewalk, and I asked them, why have 18 of those? There's 2 banks of 8 that were never a part of the drawings that we approved, and you were going to look into that for me.
Mr. Chair, that is being addressed. Redevelopment agency is handling that request.
But there's no news.
Yes, it is.
No pun intended.
No, they're actually,
It's bad news.
half of them are being removed.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Other than that, I
Okay.
have
Commissioner Boucher, any
Oh,
comments?
one further comment.
Commissioner Sharp, any comments?
The pedestrian access mid-parking lot on the west side, where you said the Surreys are able to hop the curb, you could put one of those concrete, one of the concrete trash cans that are very substantial. There's already 2 of them right there, 20 feet away. You could put one of them in the middle, provide a service for trash, and take care of the problem without any new bollards there. And I think be aesthetically more pleasing.
Okay.
Can I respond to that comment?
No. Commissioner Boucher.
I agree with what's been said. I have nothing to add.
Commissioner Arias, any comment?
Oh, I agree about the, Commissioner Lavoie about the gates. And I find this sign really not appropriate. And I understand it's going to go in a couple of years, but a couple of years has a tendency to be a lot longer.
It's not on our
I know it's not on the agenda, but the picture is here, and
Sure.
I'm going to say what I say.
You're going to say what you're going to say.
Right.
I can't shut you to it.
And very good. You've learned. I think also I would like very much to have your response to Commissioner Sharp's idea for the trash container too. I think that's a good idea, and it should be looked into.
I'm getting there. I will accept her response, but I wanted to hear Commissioner's comments first. Anything else?
I like the proposal, and I can understand very well how you have to do it for safety, and I appreciate the handicap accessibility problem because I know what it's like.
Commissioner Boucher.
I guess this is a question kind of late in the game. Is there any way to keep the Surreys out of there other than eliminating the Surreys?
That's a question, so you may answer.
Well, the Surreys are not allowed in there now.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
And neither are bicycles. And the easier we make it for them to go there, the easier it will be for them to go there. We don't have the ability to enforce signage and trying to ask folks not to do it. That's why we're proposing kind of a middle ground here, knowing that pedestrian access is important, yet we have a pedestrian safety concern.
Is it possible that at the source of them, where they rent them, they could be told not to go there? Would that help at all?
They have been told.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Boucher. Ms. Zachary, did you want to provide more information on using a trash can as a bollard on the west side?
Sure, if I could. Number one, people move those trash cans. They don't actually stay fixed in place. So we would, if we were to put a trash can there, it would be something that we would probably recommend be bolted to the sidewalk. So that's just to give you a sense. People move the trash can. If they want to go somewhere and it's movable, it's moved.
Okay.
Same thing with the bollards. If it's movable, it's moved. And if I could briefly indicate that part of the reason why we propose the gate is locking 16 bollards in place and maintaining 16 locks in a coastal environment is not successful. And so that's why we're challenged with the design, obviously the building. How do we maintain, manage, operate in this location?
Okay. I'm going to summarize the comments then and look to the commissioners for a motion. Study using a heavier anchor at the hinge point for the gates, if gates are to further be proposed. A minority of the commissioners like the gate design. Suggestion was to flip the scroll work on design 1. The gate design is not of the neoclassical period like the building. The frame needs to be more traditional. The gate design does not relate to the building or the promenade. And study using a trash can as a bollard on the west side. If everybody is in agreement with those comments, I'd like to have a motion. Okay.
Mr. Chair, speaking to the motion.
Yes, Commissioner Lavoie.
I'd like to make it more emphatic instead of study to use a larger anchor at each side of the gate to make the gate a more traditional design appropriate to the landmarks district, and to consider using a trash can instead of the bollards.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. What is it? Is it a 2-week? Is that enough time, or you want
an
indefinite?
amendment to a motion?
2 weeks not going to work just from my schedule, so indefinite.
Indefinite. Okay.
Under discussion.
Yes.
I would like to say my idea was not just to plop a trash receptacle there, but to level it at the same time and anchor it properly so that it wasn't just sitting there tilting with the slope of the slabs.
Okay, so it is an indefinite continuance. And the motion is to make the anchors at each end of the gate heavier, that the gate design shall be more traditional, and to study using trash cans as a bollard. Is that correct?
And not only more traditional, but appropriate to the...
We had the maker of the motion agree to that.
That's fine.
Okay. We had a second by Boucher under discussion.
Did he do the neoclassic? Did you want that neoclassical design reference added? No?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think so, because it's we're not just insisting on any kind of thing
Tradition,
without any
okay.
context.
Gate
So-
design shall be
That is appropriate with the style of the building, something like
That's exactly it. A gate design
Appropriate to the style
of the building.
okay. We have a maker and a seconder. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do you understand the motion? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ovias, if you could capture those and I'll have the applicant take these away.
Translate.
Here we are.
Here.
Okay.
Here's this. And here's...
No,
we
wait.
only have-
That's my job to keep these on time,
One of
right?
ours disappeared.
No, actually, we're scoping up a half hour because of the cancellation.
One of our...
Okay. Next item on... Excuse me?
One of our photo packs seems to disappear. Could we have the one that's opposite the gates? Yeah, that one. I don't know what, I don't know where ours went to. Louise ate it.
I don't want to take the only one you have.
I don't know where it happened.
Hi there.
It was here. I was looking at it.
Okay, yes, but I did have, there was...
Are we done at that end of the table?
Hi.
We're working on it.
Thanks. Seems like only yesterday.
Things haven't changed.
Next item on the agenda is item number 5, 702 Laguna Street. This is project design approval is requested. What are you trying to do to me? This is a proposal for an approximately 7,600 square foot, one-story and two-story non-residential additions at an existing housing authority facility. Please state your name for the record and give us a brief presentation, please.
Yes, sir. I'm Pete Allen, architect for the project.
Welcome, Pete.
Adrian Coulter with Peter Allen.
Welcome, Adrian.
Natira John, David Black.
Welcome, Natira.
So, we're here to show you some revisions that we've made since we saw you guys last for conceptual review. We went to Planning Commission.
Okay, we need to turn.
Planning Commission.
No, that one wasn't on. And if you could actually put it closer to your mouth, please.
Okay. Went to Planning Commission, got the project approved, and so now Adrian has since joined me, and I let her kind of go through the project and put her magic on it. So we've made some revisions to the elevations mostly, and addressed some of the conditions. I think all you guys really had last time, I think there were two things. I was, from last time, the comments from the board.
Yes.
Comments from the commission last time, which was October 27th of 2010. It was continued indefinitely with positive comments to the Planning Commission. The Commission supports the design because it locates the taller elements in the center of the site, creating less of an impact to the neighboring properties. The project meets all aspects of the project compatibility analysis requirements. Study relocating the two olive trees proposed to be removed, and significant canopy trees should be added to the site plan. Lastly, provide more design variation within between the elements that are essentially the same, e.g. plaster scoring, so on.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, just
Yes.
a little staff comment. Kelly Broderson is the case planner for this project, and I had asked her to review the project plans that were submitted a couple weeks ago. And she responded back this morning with a note that says that she compared the recently submitted plans to what was approved by the Planning Commission on June 16th, and that the proposed changes will require a substantial conformance determination, level 1 or 2, which is like a lower level determination. But she says, assuming that you are in support of the design changes, you could grant project design approval contingent upon subsequent approval of the substantial conformance determination.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gantz.
And I'll show you guys the big change.
Hold on to your chairs.
The site plan pretty much remains the same. We had to add some accessibility components to the site. One thing we did was previously this wall was back here, and we were able to rework the parking again so that we can save this existing oak tree. Other than that, that's really all we've done on the site plan. Natira will show you, give you your first shot at the landscape plan and see what you think.
Do we have elevations you want us to look at, or is it all? I think there were some comments about the scoring and.
Yeah, I'll show you in a second.
Okay.
Floor plans, if you like them. Here, on the roof plan, there are two buildings. So we have two sets of plans, we have individual pages. How's that? So what we've done, as compared to last time, is we have reworked this front entrance element here, and we've added this tower element that matches essentially what's going on the existing corner of the building, to kind of tie those two together a little bit better. The building, we raised the top of this parapet 1 foot. That's part of the change. Did that to accommodate the mechanical system we want to use, which is a very, how do you say it? It's very controllable. Each adjacent office is going to have heat or cold and stuff, and it's very energy efficient. So we need a little bit more space to run all that piping, etc. And then obviously we added this tower element.
Do they want to see it in color?
Yeah. I forgot we had color elevations.
We do have color elevations for your viewing amusement.
You guys can just. So that's the new. We messed with the windows a little bit, but didn't really change the scoring pattern or make a big effort there. I just don't think that that's going to help much. Really, what we did was we focused on making this element much better. What we had before was just a wall on an angle with a little square coming off the top of it. It wasn't much of an entrance. So we've really, I think, made substantial improvements, to that elevation.
Also regularize that elevation to the left.
Could you speak it to the microphone, please?
Oh, sorry. We also regularized the elevation to your left, where we pulled all the wall out to the same level, where at one point there was in and out things going on, so now it's all regularized.
Right, there was a recess right here for the previous door. Now we brought this wall.
So that's
flush.
all cleaned up there, and lightened it up a little bit with the railings at the top. Instead of being solid, because there's a lot of solid in this building already, we lightened those up so they're see-through railings.
Okay.
And we changed that to an overhead door.
Roll up.
Yep. So what I brought for you, there are sections and other elevations if you want to see them at a larger scale. Some sections we've cut through just to give you an idea how the building goes together.
This is the tower.
Yeah, that's actually old. Now that I look at it, it's not right.
The roofing goes on top of that, just exactly where that tower starts. We just add the roof on top of that.
But I'll show you the difference. What happened to the mics you used to put in here?
They really need to hang from the ceiling is what they needed to do.
The other building, the addition to the existing maintenance building, remains the same as we had it before. No changes from what you guys saw last time. It's a single-story project. there's sections through that. And we had shown you details. These are details that we used. We showed you these last time. They're details that we used on the previous building.
Okay.
Just for your enjoyment. And we'll have Natira show you the landscaping here in just a sec. Okay?
Okay. You
Ready?
done?
Not yet.
Okay.
Almost.
Almost.
You run a tight ship, Mr. Sewell. Let's roll that out. This is a site section we showed to the Planning Commission. Staff was concerned about how
You only have this one copy?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Staff was concerned. These are the buildings in the back towards the mountains on the adjacent property. So they asked us, this is the original one that we did, to show a site section through both, to show how the two relate. This is our new elevation compared to our old elevation. And I dashed in the height change as a result of what we're doing. So you can see, I think it's pretty insignificant. It still follows, the taller elements being in the middle, etc. So that's it.
Just since we're on the subject and the detail, do you have a photograph of the existing scoring on the other buildings?
I don't know that we have a detailed photograph of it.
Even
Louise says she loved it.
context?
It's right there. It wasn't as bad as she thought it was going to be when she saw the original building.
Who?
Louise. When she looked at it back in 1993.
Right. Then.
So our intent is to do the same thing there.
Okay. Ms. Jones, if you'd like to go ahead with your presentation. You have 3 sets.
I brought one set. For some reason I was thinking.
Is there a set exactly like this in this plan?
You betcha.
Yeah.
So you can speak to this one, and anybody else that wants to look at landscape has it in their set. Okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So.
You all right?
Why don't you switch?
Do we have the page where the landscaping is?
L-1 and L-2.
Okay, so this is the landscape plan. We're using a Mediterranean type palette, and there's quite a few. Here's the oak tree just for reference. Or actually, first let me pass out these pictures just to give you a flavor of the existing plant palette. That's there now. So here's the existing oak tree that will be preserved and protected.
Microphone, please.
Protected in the back. We're preserving these Mexican fan palms at the entrance there. There's 2 ornamental palms that will be relocated, shown on one of the pictures at the new entrance here. We're going to preserving a couple of the olives that we could at the entrance, and one right here, as well as the Mexican fan palms. There's 3 of them in that planter, which we can save and protect. The other olives had to be moved. So we had a conversation with the housing authority, and they decided rather than spending the money to box them up and stockpile them on site, they were going to move them to an off-site location or give them away and plant new olives. And so there are a few new olives. We added quite a few new trees. We've added some stenocarpus for screens in the back, evergreen, as well as some new trees in these finger planters. So our Mediterranean palette is pretty simple with succulents, agaves, and exanthus, some salvias. What else? We are adding a bioswale that's going to run along Laguna and Ortega Street, and so the water is going to be diverted into these swales, and there's one here.
And all the way along the street, right?
Yeah, so they run all along the length of Laguna
And all the way along,
and all along Ortega. so that we can retain all the stormwater on site.
Okay. Anything else?
So that's it. If you have any
Thank you, Ms.
questions.
Jones. We'll move on to public comments. Seeing none, I will.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ellen DeForest. I gather this building is not in the EPV, but on the neighborhood compatibility, in my opinion, it is, the structures, both structures are too massive and do not fit the neighborhood that's mostly cottages and smaller buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeForest. Seeing no other public, I will close public comment, bring it to the commission. Commissioner Arias, any questions? Commissioner Boucher, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Microphone, please.
About this particular.
This meaning
The corner,
this corner
battering
here?
there.
Yeah,
The intent is to match the existing battering that we have on the original building.
yeah, I see that, but I was just, it looks kind of strange to me, but
I think what you're seeing, Commissioner Boucher, is it on two different planes?
Yeah, this is looking at it straight on, scale wise.
okay, I got it.
And then the other one is a plane, a whole plane back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, in the corner. Commissioner Sharp, any questions?
One quick question. I'm assuming that you're planning to match all colors, detailing, other than maybe the entry structure,
Yeah, we might
existing?
do a different window color. I think it might be nice to, give that a.
Oh, I thought you meant the panes of glass or something. Window frame, thank you.
Landscapers.
Yeah, I am blonde, come on.
A different color on the windows. I want to keep the body, the same color, the white, and the detailing would pretty much be the same. There, we don't have these railings on the other building.
Have
But
you
that's
considered
about it.
a slight color change with different elements? Obviously not, but
Well,
would you, I guess?
no, we're looking at, at the front entrance, we'd like to do something fun.
I see that, yes.
Pop, but we'd be happy to if the commission encourages us to do that. Then I'd be certainly happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Study that, sure.
Commissioner Murray, any questions?
What kind of trees are they canopy trees or the ones in the parking?
The stenocarpus?
Yeah, the stenocarpus in the back, and then we have the oak. Okay, let's see.
Nope, you
Oh,
need to leave it
there's two
here.
jacarandas existing on that end.
So these new trees are stenocarpus. The common name is a firewheel
Firewheel.
tree.
It has the dark green oak leaf with red flowers. It's evergreen, so that's nice.
Commissioner Lavoie, any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have to abstain from this item. It was not here for the previous review and did not review the record.
Okay. Commissioner Drury, any questions?
I have to abstain for the same reason.
Okay. Couple questions from me. Where are your bike racks located?
We have bike racks located on the inside, here and here.
Microphone, Pete. Sorry.
You can see one. We have one here, interior. We have one here, and we have one right there.
Okay. And your backflow device?
We're probably going to have two of them, one here and one here, because they're separate buildings. I don't know that it's right there.
Okay.
I've had luck in the past. We found a paint color that makes those things go away pretty well too, but we certainly will.
Okay.
shrub
What kind
them
of
up.
lighting are you proposing in the parking lot?
To match what's there now, which is bollards.
And you'll come back with a plan on
We're
that.
lighting off the building the same way this building is lit.
Okay. Trash enclosure?
Trash enclosure is
Okay,
right
please
here.
label that. And the size of the oak tree, I'm assuming it's the 16-inch that the Planning Commission is speaking about? That's the 16-inch oak? Okay, great.
Yeah, I think that's the only oak
Okay.
that's there, right?
What size container are you proposing for the new olives, or have you gotten there yet?
We're thinking 24-inch box.
Okay, and that's all the questions I have. We'll bring it to comments from the commission. Commissioner Drew, any comment? No, you're going to abstain? Abstaining, Commissioner Murray?
I have to abstain.
Oh.
I wasn't here.
Then we don't have a...
I mean, this is going to come up every time there's been a project that had to get planning commission approval so many months ago. Let me call Jaime and see what to do about this.
Used to be, in the old days, maybe, I don't want to step on your toes.
No.
But they could ask if they could comment, if it's okay with us.
They've changed that. They've changed that. Okay. All right, well then, let's go ahead and get the comments from the commissioners that were here. Commissioner Arias.
All the handicap parking, there's one spot here and here. There.
I'm going to go try to find Mr. Limon. He's not available on the phone. But again, that's why I add these dates to these agenda, every single agenda.
Don't look at me.
I'm not looking at you. I'm talking to the whole commission.
I reviewed the project when it was here.
My apologies.
Okay.
And when it's really
All right. We can take that. We can take that up differently. Okay. So comments. Commissioner Boucher, any comments?
Not at the moment.
I would like to ask the applicant to respond to Mr. DeForest's comment about neighborhood compatibility.
There are,
I'm sorry.
there are a number of two-story buildings surrounding. We're in a commercially zoned area. We had to get a CUP in order to extend this type of use on the property. And as we showed on those sections, we are at the same height with our tower, same as those existing buildings, and they're existing two-story residential on the same parcel here. So, Planning Commission does obviously ask the same question. So,
Commissioner Boucher, any comments? Commissioner Sharp, any comments?
None other than the fact the original building was sort of a maintenance facility, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And the architecture followed that pretty much, and it's innocuous and it just sort of blends in. Now you're taking that same detailing and multiplying it not only greatly, but intensifying the use with a totally different feeling about what happens on that site. And I would wonder if, as I said earlier, if some subtle color changes between that pretty dead white.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some really strong possibilities that you can create a much more lively feeling other than a maintenance facility on that site through color and
love to do it.
I think it's really important.
Comments, please. Anything else, Commissioner Sharp?
No.
Okay. A couple of my comments would be to use larger size olive trees if you're going to not relocate the ones that were conditioned to be relocated. We need something of substantial value there, biomass value. You're removing a certain biomass, you need to put that biomass back. Okay?
A lot of the trees on
This
fire.
is not a discussion. Okay? And consider using a fuller tree than the stenocarpus along the north property line. Perhaps a Lophostomen evergreen is fine, but something fuller with more foliage mass to it. Okay. Since no other commissioners are going to be commenting.
Possible procedure way around this. If there is a continuance of 2 weeks, then we all can vote on it. Because we'll have been here for this meeting.
The problem is that they are looking for project design approval today.
Actually,
go ahead. Speak? Yes, you may speak, Mr. Aylan.
What was I going to say? I'm surprised I could speak.
have to run the meetings this way. I have to. Come on.
We cannot get whatever the new preliminary approval is called. We can't get that now. No, all we can do is take comments on the change. Staff would like to hear comments on the change from what we did.
Okay, it was
from a
agenda that
massing
says that, but I
standpoint.
understand now why, because Kelly hasn't reviewed it completely. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not without staff, so I agree with Commissioner Rios. We probably could be around this, and so.
Oh, here's Amy.
Mr. Lamone, one of the ways we thought we might be able to get around this is if we continued this 2 weeks, since we can't really make project design approval at this point.
Okay. My understanding is most of you did not see this project before?
That is correct. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. What we can do is let you become informed of the previous reviews. That's the whole intent behind abstaining, not to come in and alter the course of this review by offering new input. So have you read the previous minutes on the item? Let's start there.
Mr. Lamone, I did read the previous minutes.
Okay, let's do that now. Rather than have everyone abstain, let's just get informed on what happened previously.
Okay.
Read the minutes, and then if we have to look at the plans previously, let's get you up to date on what's happened.
I did read them at one point, but I will read them again.
Could you pull out the previous plans?
Pull up the plans.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Rios.
in defense, I have to say that my agenda came on Monday, and I work, and there was no way I would have time to get down here to review things and everything like that, and I'm not the only one that works, so.
Okay.
Well, we do send out an email after 4:30 on Friday, and I know Gabriella sent that out on Friday, so if it's possible for you to check your email and access it over the weekend, it might give you a couple more days.
Well, we need some time because I have.
Okay. This is a discussion for another time.
I realize that,
Okay,
but
so
I'm
then
apologizing to the applicant because
Okay.
I do try and.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drury.
I'd simply like to apologize and say I have no excuse, because we can go online and look at the videos and zero right in on the meeting that we need to zero in on. So I apologize.
I agree too. I thoroughly lost the ball. Sorry.
Okay. Commissioner LaVoy, do you feel comfortable with the project prior review?
No. I could not support the design.
That would change the course of direction of this.
That
Okay.
sure would.
Yes.
I would
Commissioner
rather abstain.
Drury.
Am I comfortable?
Are you comfortable with having comprehended the prior review?
Oh, I'm comfortable with that.
That's what I'm, okay, sorry, I should have made myself clear. You feel you have a good comprehension of the prior review?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes, by reading by having heard the minutes and also looking at the plans.
Very well.
And I also did a site visit today.
Perfect. Commissioner Arias, you feel comfortable
Yes.
with your comprehension of the previous review? Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I think what would be on the table is to evaluate whether or not the previous comments directed to the Planning Commission, where you stated to them that it was an acceptable design, and they based their approval on that, has been altered based on this change. If it's not a substantial change that would alter your previous direction, then I think it would be appropriate to move forward with the design. But if you think these changes are adversely or making it not an improvement, then you do have a purview over those changes. Because I believe they've come back with some minor changes.
Yep.
And so have you walked them through those changes?
Yep.
Okay, so now you need to make a decision as to whether or not those are acceptable.
Commissioner Sharp, I'm going to ask you to weigh in. Do you feel comfortable with the changes between what was reviewed by Planning Commission and what is being presented before our commission today? Namely, an increase in height, minor increase in height, a handrail addition, and a tower addition. Do you feel?
I think the handrails are probably in keeping with this design idiom, but they're certainly not something that should be acceptable in the district.
good question.
Commissioner Boucher, I'm going to ask you to weigh in, please. You want me to repeat the question?
No, I understand what you're saying. Do I feel that what's being presented today is up with what we saw before?
And what was presented to Planning Commission.
And this is what was presented to Planning Commission. Well, I think some of the things that have happened have been surgery. But is your mic on? Oh, my mic is on. Yes.
Next door, and I can't hear when you're blowing your nose.
Sorry,
He couldn't help himself. Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Well, as I said, I feel that there have been improvements made on this. I mean, just looking at the drawings, I think maybe something that people are not quite getting is that scoring pattern is not so shriekingly loud as it appears on the elevations. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment now?
Actually, I'd like to weigh in if I could, since I was on the commission when this was originally reviewed as well.
Way back.
I feel that the tower and the railings are somewhat problematic. I don't have a problem with that parapet going up just one more foot. That's not the issue with me. The tower element, it is a minor element. It is in the back of the property or in the center of the property. So I'm struggling with it a little bit. The railings, I feel, are not appropriate for, or not in keeping with our guidelines. So that I definitely have a problem with. The tower, you're going to have to convince me, I think. Commissioner Lavoie.
I would agree. I think that the elements that have been changed have pushed the design more in the direction of postmodern design than pulling it into being in conformance with the district. The items, the articulation of the tower, the railing in particular, and actually the raising of the second-story parapet higher than to match the lower story parapet. Traditionally in historical architecture, that whole dimension would be reduced by 10% at least as you raise stories. So it's fighting sort of traditional proportioning by raising the parapet.
Commissioner Murray?
Yeah, I agree with those because as I was looking at the building today, and I think the reason why we can drive by and not be, kind of jarred by it is because of its sort of horizontal simplicity. And I am concerned that this new addition will really bring a lot of attention to that area and bulk it up where you're going to go by and say, my goodness, what happened here? And at the same time, the architecture is really trying to mimic this building, which is really not the architecture that we expect in the district. And so that's where my discomfort is. So I think in any way, shape, or form that you can simplify it and make it so that it's just part of the site, and you go by and say, oh, it was always there before, that kind of feeling. I think it will work that way. It is, like Don Sharp said, it was next to the more industrial way. So I think it needs to be just that more simplicity. And that tower, I think, was just going to bring attention to it. And I'm looking at it and I say, okay, where do I see this? Probably in the Upper State Street or some of the buildings up there. So I think the more it stays horizontal and simplified, like the current building, it will work.
And with all due respect, Commissioner Murray, we are beyond the second story portion and having 2 stories. We've already approved that, but I understand what you're saying is to keep it low slung, even though it is 2 stories. Is that?
I
okay?
think I think I could continue to abstain because those comments are not in
Throws it off.
keeping with the
Okay, Commissioner Drury, anything?
I would agree with the previous comments, and I would ask for simplicity. More simplicity in the design.
Okay. And Commissioner Rios, did you get a chance to comment?
I agree with the fact to go more with a simplistic design, and I also have some problems with the railing and the tower.
Okay. Mr. Allen, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to rebut.
Rebut.
Or agree with.
Or agree.
Oh, I have that option.
Okay. Clock starts now.
When you say you need to be convinced about the tower, what do you need?
That there's precedence for it on the property or in the neighborhood.
There is.
Okay. That it is not significantly more mass, bulk, and scale than what was looked at and approved by us. Looked at Planning Commission and approved by us before that.
Yeah, that's why I showed you that section.
Yeah, I'm just not quite convinced with that section, so maybe I need to study it more. I don't know.
Okay.
The other thing about that is that the tower signifies the public entrance to the building, whereas before there wasn't such a big public aspect, but people are coming into this building for meetings. They need to know where they're going.
Entry identification.
Entry identification. And it does match the building next door to it, which has the roof over the conference room.
Can I see some photos of that?
Certainly.
Okay.
And so it doesn't work over this building's conference room. It doesn't work in terms of the plan, how it works. And so we thought the only really other option to make the elements match between the buildings, to make a compound out of the 2 buildings, was to put it over the entry element, to make it as a nonverbal signage to people that are unfamiliar with the building where
You
to
don't
go.
have any more photos?
And there are other ways to do that, obviously.
There are, but that is already a building element that is
Okay.
within the compound.
I'm not aware of that. Commissioner Lavoie.
The problem is it doesn't look like a traditional tower. It looks like a higher building element. If it looked more like a tower,
it might be successful.
So if
it'd
it
be
was
more
skinnier,
successful.
A clock.
Well, it's
I did not mean that seriously.
Yeah, we know that. Okay. I think you have enough direction, unless there's something else you wanted to add to your rebuttal.
But so in essence, the commission is not comfortable with the changes that we've made.
In essence, yes. That's not to say that there couldn't be refinement to make us comfortable, i.e. the tower proportions change, a different type of railing, an introduction of color into the building. I don't think that this has made a U-turn.
No.
I hope you don't feel that way. I think it's the process, and that process is refinement.
Will do.
Okay. I guess I'll have Mr. Lavoie summarize comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
That the changes to the design, particularly the railing, needs to be more Hispanic, that the expression of the tower has to be more traditional, that the proportion and treatment of the raise and parapet needs to be addressed in light of wanting the proportion of the upper story to be smaller than that of the ground story.
May I add to that if you're done?
Yes, please.
Okay. Use color changes within the new building to enliven the building. Propose larger olives to replace the removed olives. And consider using fuller trees along the north property line. And propose more significant landscaping to screen the backflow preventer. Okay?
For 2-week continuance?
Would you like 2-week or indefinite? 2 or 4-week or indefinite?
What would you do?
I'd go for 2.
All right, we'll go for 2.
Final offer?
Final offer.
We have 2-week continuance. A motion by
Sharp.
Second.
Second by Boucher. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do you understand the motion?
Perfectly.
Good. That's what we try to achieve.
And staff, did I vote or not vote? Abstain.
It's all yours.
Actually, we will keep that one down there, but this one is ours.
That one's yours, right?
Yeah, to begin with.
We'll take this one.
Okay, thank you.
You
Go
should
ahead.
keep this one here. This is the exhibit we showed you.
Okay.
Just gave my agenda away.
I am going to call for a 10-minute recess.
Thank you so much.
Permission and repainting this building.
Yeah.
Okay, I will reconvene
beautiful
the
building.
August 31st meeting of the Historic Landmarks Commission. Next item on the agenda is 33 East Mitchell-Torrena Street. Hello. Please introduce yourself for the record and give us a brief presentation.
My name is Gary Jensen. I'm the architect on this project. I'm Gary Jensen, and I am the architect on this project. This is the Notre Dame School that's at the corner of Mitchell-Torrena and Anacapa, and bounded on the other block of Arriaga. And the owners have had, the school has had some problem with homeless people coming into the campus, and they wanted to secure their campus grounds. And it's secured except for in the front near Mitchell-Torrena. And we're proposing to put in a fence on the corner side, a steel fence. And there has been already approved a steel fence on the State Street side, and that is going in this week. And so as a second phase, we're coming in with the opposite side. We had to go through a process of getting modifications for some of the existing fences and hedges that are there now. And so that's why the two projects came through separately. The State Street side needed no modification, but the other side did. And we have secured the modification for this.
May I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
Okay. I wanted to read the motion from the last meeting. I didn't have a chance to do that before you got started. It was continued indefinitely with the following comments. Staff should refer this property to the HLC Designation Subcommittee for possibly designating the structure as a building of merit. The modification for the 12-foot hedge and the 8-foot fence within the front yard setback is supportable by the Commission. Provide a detail of the fence at half-inch or greater scale. Eliminate the scroll work on the pickets. Extend the posts of the fence above the top rail and perhaps add a finial. Demonstrate emergency access hardware. Retain the scroll work on the handrail on the Mitchell-Torrena Street stair. Seek determination from the Transportation Division on location of the vehicular gate on Anacapa Street. The planting on the corner of Mitchell-Torrena and Anacapa should be low in nature for visibility. And also, Mr. Jensen, you refer to the fence facing State Street.
On the State Street side.
State Street
of the
side.
building.
Though that would be this side of the building?
That would be right here.
Okay.
So the fence here is approved. So that's already has a permit.
Okay.
And we're only talking about this area.
Okay.
At this corner.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Mitchell-Torrena Street.
At Mitchell-Torrena and Anacapa. Right now, there's a low fence that is at right along the stone wall here and here that would be removed. There's a chain link fence that comes all the way along this side to about the extent of where our fence is going to go right now. So what we'd like to do is add a new fence that goes from the building across to that stone wall, and then just returns about, I think about 8 feet right at this point. This would be the second phase. Our third phase would cover the rest of this fence that we're proposing to change. But right now, this is what we'd like to do. Right now, this area is a asphalt playground. The asphalt goes all the way to the corner, although there's a flagpole at this point and a palm at this point. So what we'd like to do is take out all of the asphalt in this area and re-landscape it. Take down the fence. Now, I just met with the manager, and we were asking for a final. And he said today, just 15 minutes before I came, that what they'd like to do is they'd actually like to take this fence and push it about 10 or 12 feet further back and have more landscaping out in this area, and not have it so close to the corner out here. So what I'd really like, I suppose, there might be a way for you to say, well, we can give it a final, or it could be, we like all of this, but maybe it'll come back in 2 weeks on consent, just to see what the landscaping is. I don't know. Okay. But let me just show you the rest of it.
Okay, we are turning to page 802, or A-2. Hold on to your presentation until we all get on the same page, please. Everyone there?
So the fence in the front.
Yep, hold please.
Sit down when he points things, then I can see on the TV.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr.
Jensen. The fence, you can see the elevation of the whole front, and then the fence across the front is very simple. With a larger scale drawing here, this would just be repeated in panels. So there's a heavier post with a round finial at the top, and then just simple pickets running across like this. And there is a gate at one point. The gate is represented here like this. On the Handicap side, we would just have a small return of a new fence. The rest of this fence along this side would be as is until we do this phase 3 and replacing this and including the gate that enters at that point.
So we're turning to L-1. Please wait. Everyone there? Go ahead, Mr. Jensen.
Okay. So the planting selection was really sort of keying off to some of the other plantings that are in the area, but it's also kept very low. So there's rosemary that's along the wall in the front, and lantana that just will fill in this area. The 2 trees that are here will be left in that location. And there are stepping stones that go out to the flagpole at this point. We have, let's see, fescue, it looks like, that's just around the flagpole, and morning glory that is having a sweep back in this area. So the planting is simple, but it's going along with the rest of the planting that we have on property. So.
Anything else, Mr. Jensen?
No, that's all.
Okay. I will open public comment. Having nothing, I will close public comment and bring it to the commission for questions. Commissioner Reese, any questions?
Yes.
Turn on the microphone. Just that thing on the end of the cord.
It looks like this, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Keep smiling. How high is that fence?
The fence is 8 feet high.
8 feet high.
Yes.
Okay, that's one of my questions. And in the description of your project, you said you are not dealing with the fence going down the rest of the road.
Only the first 8 feet, yes.
Only the first 8 feet.
Yes.
And on Anacapa, what would the height of that fence be?
8 feet.
8 feet.
We have a modification approval.
Does that
for 8.
include it's sitting on the 6-foot wall or not?
There's no 6-foot wall. It's about a 30-inch wall. But the fence itself is 8 feet because it needs to be 8 feet from the school side in order to control the balls. So if you were from the other side, then you would add about 2.5 feet to the height.
Because when I read your description, I am concerned for when you come back that it speaks of a 12-foot high hedge on a 6-foot-high wall, and 12 and 6 is 18 feet up.
Yes.
And that's a lot of up.
No, let me explain what that means. The modification included approval of a hedge that is at the corner of Arriaga and Anacapa. And this fence, this hedge here is 12 feet high. That's the 12 feet. But it's 12 feet from the ground.
From the ground.
And buried within this hedge is a 6-foot fence, but that's buried within there. And this hedge also has 6-foot arches that are cut. So at every trunk, the foliage comes all the way down to the ground. And the trunks are basically 12 feet apart. So then there's a 6-foot arch. So we're keeping the arch, the opening, so you can see into the grounds. But that particular comment was regarding the modification that is over on this side. I believe that's what that is about.
So let me ask a question that might help clarify Commissioner Arias' staff. Ms. Gantz, this is agendized as really I believe the whole project, but we're now seeing something that is being phased, and we're reviewing only the corner at Anacapa and Mitchell-Chirena. Does the project description need to be revised?
No, this project was it's actually 2 master applications.
Okay.
And one of them was the proposal to permit a new handrail guardrail along the front entry stairs at Anacapa and a new 42-inch high steel gate and 8-foot tall steel fence along the west side of the main building. Overheight fencing and hedges are being reviewed under separate master app, which requires staff hearing officer review. That's this one that you're reviewing now. And the project description for this one is to remove the existing 9-foot tall chain link fence, putting up a new 8-foot tall ornamental iron fence alongside the existing hedge that is 12 feet in height along both front lot lines. And then they were going to remove a portion of the existing asphalt paving at the corner for new planting. And staff hearing officer approval is requested for zoning mods to allow the fence and hedge to exceed 42 inches at the front lot lines. And that was approved on July 27th of 2011 at the staff hearing officer. So
my question is what we're reviewing today is just this corner here, it's stopping 8 feet back from the turn, and then this portion from here to here to here is going to be reviewed at a later. Excuse me. From here to here is going to be reviewed at a later time.
Yes.
At a later time, because because Mr. Johnson said that the owners decided they wanted to make that change. Isn't that what you told me?
Well, there's actually that's a separate issue. What I just talked to you about.
Okay, all right.
But the owners just want to build this in phases because it's a funding issue, and so they want to build this as the second phase and this other section as the third phase. So they have funding for this portion, and the rest of this that we got with the modification. Then we want to come back at a later time. Now, I don't mind getting the approval of the whole thing, but it's just that they're only going to build this.
That's what you have. Yeah, that's unfortunately we can't bifurcate or trifurcate a project because of funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will need to review from here to here.
Mm-hmm. But when we apply for our permit, then we only want to get the permit for the front area.
That's fine.
And that's okay.
That's fine.
Your building permit,
Yeah.
okay.
that can you can get an inspection for that, and then you have another 180 days or more, depending on how you get those extensions to get that done.
Okay. May I ask you
Yes,
so what is
continue.
the height of the fence of the hedge or fence, total height along this way, along in here?
The height of the fences or hedge is 8 feet, will be 8 feet.
Not 12 feet, as in
No.
our document.
8 off the top of the wall,
Yes,
and there's an additional 30 inches roughly,
yes.
On the wall.
which is about the height of the existing podocarpus hedge that's along there now.
Right.
Yes.
Can you hand those photos over?
Okay,
Right now, the existing fence that's there now is 9 feet high.
Yeah.
So we're going to be lower than the existing fence.
Okay.
12 feet is referring to this hedge, the existing hedge.
All right.
Off the sidewalk.
I asked a concern about, and it was referred to the Transportation Department, about the driveway and visibility of cars entering and exiting the driveway.
Yes.
And I would like to know what happened about that.
Well, at this point, since we're proposing just a portion of our Phase 2 and not this whole side, the drawings don't reflect what
But we have to, we've
the
got the whole thing in
transportation-
front of us now, because we
No,
can't
you-
bifurcate it,
Yeah.
so we need to know that.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, when I come back with a modified drawing that shows this whole side, if that's what we're going to do, then I will be showing I think it's the transportation issue, which is 10 feet on each side of this gate and being at the height that they want. And
Yeah.
it's no problem to do that.
I'm
But,
worried about visibility.
Yeah. So that's what we'll be showing. And the third phase, my assumption, if I came in with the third phase, which I'm not, but a second phase, was I would deal with those issues at that time. But I was just showing what was existing at this
Okay,
time.
so what we are giving you comments on today are really just this corner, and then you will come back at a later time and give us the rest of this up to this point, in which we can
We
make a motion. We
bifurcated
can't make a motion on something that we don't have
We just bifurcated it.
drawings for.
Well, all I wanted was the motion for the
But
for the
you can
front.
only get comments on that because
Yeah.
this is considered one project.
Mhm.
You understand?
Mhm.
Correct, Ms. Gantz? If he doesn't have this segment of fence proposed today, he can't get final.
That's correct. You need to submit drawings. I wasn't sure of the extent of the change that you were talking about, and I thought maybe we could redline it and have it approved as
Maybe
noted.
we can.
But then
Let's
he
get
said
to
there was a lot of landscaping involved, so
So let's
probably not
That's
gonna
a
be
different
possible.
issue.
So then
The
let's
issue she's talking about is purely just moving the fence further back.
Okay, so
And
let's continue.
that's no problem. And if I get comments from everybody, then I'm perfectly happy to come back in 2 weeks and show you the whole side
Okay.
and what we're proposing for the landscaping. And then that way I can show the landscaping
Finish that
here.
up. Okay, perfect.
But if there's any concerns that anybody has that I need to deal with before then,
Okay.
so that we can just slide through
Okay.
at that time.
Well,
That's what I'd like to do.
Yeah, we can't make that promise to you, but we'll help.
That
way
will
we can.
help grease the skids, but not the thorns
All right,
and the
come-
splinters.
Okay. Are you finished with your presentation?
Go ahead.
No, are you finished?
Yes.
I want to give you as much time as you need.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Drury, any questions?
I do. I don't know if it matters in the project description, but the hedge, the first sentence, proposal to permit an existing 12-foot high hedge on a 6-foot high wall. Well, there's no 6-foot wall. It's not a wall. It's a fence. And is that?
I think that's an error.
But is that important? I believe it should be changed. It's just
It's
it's
not
a fence. It's a fence from the boundary along Arriaga all the way down to Micheltorena.
The on is incorrect also. So it should say a 6-foot chain link fence within a 12-foot
Mhm.
fence.
All right.
So it's not proposal to permit an existing 12-foot high hedge on a 6-foot high wall within 10 feet?
No.
It's not a wall.
What
It's
is
a
it?
fence.
Right, so it's proposal to
Well-
permit an existing
6-foot chain link
Fence.
fence within a, and I missed that word.
It's to.
Excuse me, Mr.
Go ahead.
Johnson. May I suggest that staff and the applicant
Thank you.
wordsmith
Yep.
the
Excellent.
let me
Okay,
wordsmith
so-
the description. Mr. Drury,
Yes.
continue.
So there's that, and then the other question is the the current proposal, you're anticipating moving the fence that you've drawn for us. It's going to, if the owners have their way, it's going to be moved even further back to allow more landscaping?
Yes.
That's correct? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner LaVoy, any questions?
Yes. One, how often is the playground used as a parking lot?
I don't know.
Rarely is the answer. I know. I'm associated with Trinity Church on the corner, and we have used your parking lot on rare occasions.
You mean their playground?
It's a playground, and for most of the time, it's a playground, and the drive access is a service access, not a parking lot access.
I didn't suggest that it was.
All right.
No.
Commissioner LaVoy, any more questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Murray, any questions? I have a couple, actually. What are the species of the two trees to remain?
Those are,
You can label those the next time you come.
yeah.
And then, if the fence moves back, how does it hit the wall? Are there windows there?
No, there's no windows.
Okay.
There are photos.
So it just hits the wall?
Yeah, it just hits the wall. It's the same wall all the way back.
Perfect. Commissioner Sharp, any questions?
None.
Commissioner Boucher? Commissioner Arias, any questions?
No.
No? How about comments for you, Commissioner Arias?
Well, my only comment and concern is that when you wall in this area, that you consider the fact that there has to be, at times, emergency vehicle access because things happen at schools and things like this. And so being able to access this side of the school with fire trucks or whatever is necessary is important. So I hope you keep that in mind. And also, I would like to point out that the driveway, it may not, I knew it was a playground, but any cars coming out have visibility no matter what the use is or when it's used. And that's why my concern about that driveway.
Yes. Transportation requires it, so we'll do
We're
it.
not rebutting, we're just making comments. Commissioner Boucher, any comments?
No.
Commissioner Sharp?
Yes. Currently, asphalt is right up to the back of the wall on the corner here. And the flagpole is surrounded by asphalt. There's a vehicle parking right there. So any pulling it back will be a major asset to the corner and Santa Barbara in general.
Commissioner Murray, any comments?
Yeah, I concur with that.
Comments, and I would also encourage, I like that idea of even more, moving it even more to the more feet this way, so more landscaping is good for me. Thank you.
Commissioner LaVoy, any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I agree with those comments. I would also like to thank the applicant for the extensive amount of restoration being done on this building. It's looking beautiful again. A comment on the gate design that faces Mitchell-Terena Street. The gate should be the full height of the fence, the 8 feet. Should have a post on the right of it, on either side of it, and look a little bit more like a gate than just a section of fence.
Commissioner Drury?
I have a question, I'm sorry. The material that the fence is made of, is it square tube or solid?
Tube.
Thank you. And then I would concur with the previous comments. I think it's a great project. It's going to make that corner much more attractive. Thank you.
Any other comments? Typically, we don't approve tubular, square, steel in our guidelines. You're going to need to make that solid.
There's a tremendous amount of fence, and if that was the case, then the church probably won't be able to afford it. Now, there is tubular steel that comes square edged. Can we use that?
If you can provide a sample and you can convince us that it doesn't look tubular. Because you're right, I mean, it's the radius. Excuse me, let me finish getting mic'd up. It's the radius edge of the square tubular stock that belies it's hollow. But if there is a square, crisp, tubular steel that emulates the solid stock, this might be able to fly off on that.
Okay.
On one person.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So could you provide us with a sample of that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me summarize the comments and look for a motion. Okay. Continue to consider the sight lines off of the drive on Anacapa Street. Additional landscaping at the corner of Anacapa and Mitchell-Torrena is much appreciated and well received. Identify the 2 trees that are to remain on the corner of Anacapa and Mitchell-Torrena. The Commission appreciates the restoration and maintenance of this building. The gate shall reach full height and provide a sample of the proposed square metal pickets. Do I have a maker?
We also appreciate if they were saying that they were going to move this.
Okay,
even
I will
further,
add that
we
then.
want to encourage that. You know.
The Commission encourages movement of the fence
Northward.
northward.
Did the maker of the motion identify that the fence is 8 feet high?
There's no maker yet, but I will add that to the comment.
Yes.
I'll make the motion and verify the fact that the fence we're approving is 8 feet off of grade,
Off of grade over.
not off of back of sidewalk.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
We have a maker, Sharp. We need a 2-week continuance.
Okay.
2-week continuance. Sharp, Boucher, all in favor?
Aye.
And, Mr. Chair, just can you restate that? HLC encourages the movement of the fence northward 8 feet,
No, period.
period.
Northward, yeah.
And verify that the height of the fence is 8 feet.
From the
grade.
Off grade.
off grade.
Playground grade. Is that clear? Ms. Gantz? Okay.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Do you understand the motion, Mr. Jensen?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I didn't bring in the whole thing. We had it drawn and we said, no, we only doing phase 1. I mean, phase 2.
And you may take this set and that set with you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, we have to start that all over. I didn't have a battery in my microphone. Ouch. No, they were ringing, but I don't know what we're on. I don't know where we're going. Somebody took my agenda. No, the item on the agenda is item number 7. This is 651 Paseo Nuevo. Final approval of the project is requested. Project was last reviewed 2 weeks ago. Okay, the comments from last meeting. There was a straw vote. How many commissioners would find that the starlight pendants as shown on page 9 for the Paseo number 6 are supportable? It was a 2-2-2 split vote. Okay, motion. Project design approval and continued 2 weeks with the following comments. The proposal is an artistic and creative solution to the amenities. The proposed upholstered furniture, as shown on pages 6 and 7, is too contemporary. The commissioner felt that a minority of the commissioners felt that the ribbon pole is not supportable. A minority of the commissioners felt that the starlight pendants under the flying buttresses are supportable, as shown on page 9 of the proposal. 2 of them felt that it was not acceptable, and 2 would vote either way. The applicant was directed to look into other options.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was not here for the discussion 2 weeks ago, so I...
Did you bring yourself up to speed on the 2-week
I did
old
not.
discussion? Shame on you. Anyone
Yes,
else?
you're right.
Okay, so that means you're going to be abstaining?
Yes, I shall abstain.
All right, we still have a quorum. If you'd please introduce yourself for the record and give a brief presentation.
Henry Lane Decisive, yeah.
I'm Ryan Mills with Vicente Mills Architecture.
Welcome.
All right. Well, what we have here is just putting aside for the moment those two items, I think, the chairs and the starlights. We're just proceeding forward with really the construction documents for all the light fixtures that you saw, the pedestals, the tile patterns of the pedestals, and so on and so forth, which you'll see in a minute. Jumping right into the furniture, it's tough to find some true Spanish colonial revival furniture that we have, our lounges. We did look for them. We did find some furniture which was beefier. Ironically, this is done by Restoration Hardware, and it's called the Santa Barbara line.
Do we need to have a fast
And then let me see. We actually did finish some of the bench samples. Is it the last page? I'll just jump around if you don't mind, because the last page. We did some samples, so. Okay, Ryan, where are they? 19?
19 in ours? Oh, yeah, there it is.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, these are the samples that were just finished.
So those are actual photographs of what is manufactured for
Yeah,
you.
and if you're interested, they're actually at Paseo Nuevo right now.
These benches were in the Biltmore and in El Paseo, going way back to the beginning.
Okay, let the applicant finish his presentation.
Okay.
The only concern that we have, if a poodle is sitting here, he may fall through the back of the seat, and so we're looking at the possibility, or a child, we're looking at the possibility of doing a reverse pattern and leaving a gap. This is extremely comfortable. Actually, that turned out very, very well.
Okay. Next.
And then going back to the chairs, there's a couple of choices that we found. There's this one here. They call it the Santa Monica, and then there's this one, which is I think less contemporary than the other chair. It was tough to find anything like that. We're hoping with what the idea is to provide some comfort here, and we're actually hoping that they are going to blend in with all the things that they have. We'll have some pots and things next to these things, and and umbrellas and so on and so forth.
What else have you got?
Well, jumping into the starlight situation. I do like the starlights. Where are they, Ryan? You manage this. We did do a little research. They go back a long time. In fact, my house was built in 1525 in Mexico, and of course they didn't have lighting, but they did have candles that you put inside in a rope to bring them down every night, and they were there at that point. But they do go back to Morocco. They go back to Spain, and they actually. And the Spanish, and the other option that I was discussing with the guys outside to use is what we actually had a lighting designer do some lighting for the show in Las Vegas, and there's all these LED lights that look like rainfall. I love them, but I'm not sure that it's going to be appropriate for Santa Barbara. So we'd just like to appeal to you to reconsider these.
Okay.
And we will have some samples made, and we will hang them. And like we're doing prototypes for everything. And so In any event, maybe if we can reserve judgment till then, or just give it a try, and if it doesn't work, I think Paseo Nuevo is going to be the first one to say, no, don't put them in there, but I believe they will work. We do have some actual construction documents on the things that needed to have, and these are the chandeliers on the Paseo underneath the arch. And if you recall, we are planning on painting the walls of the bridge to match the buildings, because right now it's too fragmented. They look like faux stone, which never did work. And again, the idea is that these are four-sided. This is keeping with the theme of the stars, this would be the connecting element that would occur right here. And then we are proposing some stenciling on these ceilings, and this would be the colors of the stenciling, where we just take the block and just create. It's tough to show it here, but the colors should be a lot more subtle and so on, but the same colors nonetheless, and it's tough to reproduce that on paper. But the idea is that we have a dark green band all the way, each module, with even a darker molding painted, and then create the series of circles. And in the center, in the field, it would feel a little bit like if it was an upholstered ceiling, really, but all with paint. And so this is what we'd like to try. And again, we'll try a section of it and see how it behaves against the plaster. This is a refinement of the chandeliers that occur. This is the most difficult part, I believe, of the Paseo.
Impossible.
Almost, And so that's why we're actually dropping in certain areas these chandeliers that will contain some high efficiency color corrected floods, with the idea that it can, rather than spotlighting, it can just wash the ceiling. And hopefully by lowering the ceiling at these locations, it would not seem to be straightforward, and just not do anything to the ceiling, just leave it painted monochromatic white, I think. Along the lines, we were proposing a focal point for these areas that are fairly dark that would be indirectly lit, and one idea is to use the terracotta pots with some glazing, and we've been talking a lot to California Potteries about that. These are the bollards and the typical finial that we're planning on using throughout for the restaurants. And again, we're looking at some very heavy chains. The lengths would be about ½ inch or 3/4 of an inch. They will be retractable, but it would be tough for anyone to steal them because they have to steal 10 of them at the same time. And, we do have a detachable link here in case they have some large events. They can remove them like they do on State Street, and then the ground remains flush. Let me see, what else do we have here? Oh, yes. And here is this goes actually in the area where there's currently a circle and where the mobile was proposed to be placed there. The idea is to have some boxwood hedge all the way around it, and then have the pedestal stick out of the ground, and then you have the ribbons here. As far as the ribbons are concerned, the idea is to have these attachments on the top of it. This is a compression ring that actually bolts together, and it would be someplace up here. And then there would be these inserts, but the way these are 4-inch ribbons, the widest, and then they taper down 10 feet long. The idea is that they would be Velcroed we thought about inserting them and so on, but it would be too difficult. It's better to Velcro them in place. It looks too complicated here, but in effect, they're not. These things are 4.5 inches by 1 inch. The idea is that you won't see any of the hardware, that you would just see the flags. And we stagger them so that they don't wrap one against the other, all at the same level. What are we supposed to do then? The colors are actually, these are the color palettes that we're planning on. The pots that we have, and if you recall, there was a proposal to have a stack of pot shelves, and instead, the idea would be to surround this with pots. I am thinking that this could be boxwood hedges, and then a teepee tree in the center, and everything would be firmly attached to the ground. This is kind of the idea for that. And we're not using the hibiscus, I guess, because you thought the white flies, but everything else would be. Can you do something about this, Phil? Put some medicine or something so that they survive. It would be great to have an Italian cypress against the Nordstrom wall. It's so tall. And so, anyway, that is.
That's all?
That is all.
Okay. Go to the commission for questions. Oh, excuse me. Open public comment. Mr. DeForest. Okay, closing public comment.
Thank you. So, still could have the lounge chairs and tables are very modern, are still very modern, look like they came out of a furniture store, that's a patio furniture store, and they do not conform to the EPV guidelines, neither do the ribbon poles. I've never been to Spain, but I've seen a lot of pictures, and I've never seen anything that looked like that. Also, I'm wondering, since these pots are almost ubiquitous, couldn't something else like a statue be used as a focal point? I think there's too much stuff in the paseos. Look at El Paseo where there's no stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeForest. Close public comment now. Bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Drury, any questions?
I have no questions. Well, yes, I do. I'm sorry. I have a question. Who generated the idea of the ribbon pole?
I did.
Thank you.
Instead of a mobile, which I saw a picture of a mobile.
Okay, Commissioner Lavoie, any questions?
Yes, in the Macy's Arcade where the Starlight's proposed, how large a fixture are you proposing?
About 30 inches or 36 inches.
A star this big.
Mm-hmm. But again, we're completely flexible on that. They make them.
Henry, how big do you want them to be?
24 inches.
Thank you, Henry.
Commissioner Murray, any questions?
Could you elaborate a little bit on your inspiration for the ribbons?
Yes, it's the idea is to have some movement and color, and occasionally when the sun is in the right direction, as you know, when the sun backlits, it's actually quite beautiful. But the main idea is to create some movement. Everything seems to be so static here. The reason for the ribbon, as opposed to the flags, is that the wind, even a breeze, would create that movement and color. And that the idea came up when Ryan and I were walking through the property, and we thought everything is rigid, that nothing moves.
So the next question is there going to be a noise from it? Or, let's say the sun is moving it, so is there going to be a noise from the movement of the ribbons?
No, not even that. Not like you mean like what happens with the wind and the trees and so
Yeah, well,
on.
I'm thinking of all those sort of sculptures where they have
Oh,
a
yeah.
kinetic sculpture.
things that are, you
No.
know, when the sun hits them, they'll rotate and then they
No, nothing like that. It would be all just very passive.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
No, that's it.
Commissioner
Thanks.
Sharp, questions? Oh, Commissioner Boucher, questions?
One thing I was a little unsure of was the idea of putting a tipperone in a pot.
It'll do fine.
in my house.
Those things get, which side street is it?
Ortega.
Ortega.
It'll do fine in a pot.
Really,
Yes.
really?
Parking lot.
Really, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
be okay.
And the other thing I question is the use of cushions on the furniture. I know it makes it more comfortable, but on the other hand, they have to be taken in and out depending on the weather, and they, heaven forbid, get mildew, if, and so on and so forth. So I just question the need for that much comfort. Besides, maybe if people sit down between stores, that's good, but I want them to keep moving. Okay. So those are my questions. Okay.
Commissioner Arias, any questions?
No questions, just comments.
Okay. I had a couple of questions, but first I wanted to make sure that the applicant understood, I think from the prior meeting, that it wasn't necessarily the star fixtures that, at least me, at least I had a problem with. It was the configuration of the star fixtures in that Flying Buttress Arcade. Star fixtures, I know, are used all over Spain, Mexico, Portugal. It's very traditional, so it's not a problem with the star fixtures. I guess it's just the configuration.
Yeah, okay,
it seems
I see.
more of a contemporary solution.
Okay.
But that being said, just wanted to make sure that applicant understood that. What is while we're on this page? Where do these upholstered chairs, lounges occur? How many places? You don't have to give exact locations, but how many places?
Each page, this is sort of the overall.
I understand.
In
Yeah.
each page, it shows both quantities and specific locations.
Okay.
And we do provide the owners to move these around,
Okay.
but generally there's a couple, 2-3 seating ensembles in center court. There'll be some above at the arts complex, and then perhaps 2 seating arrangements per paseo.
Okay, so seating arrangement here, seating arrangement
No,
here, seating arrangement here.
None
Okay.
here specifically. So
Here?
here there'll be some. Here there's a cluster, and then we have I think one here, one here, one here.
So there's maybe a handful of 20 or so, 24 throughout the whole project, including the CAF.
Including CIF. Actually, no, I believe there's more.
Okay.
We have if we could go through and do a quantity, I think
I
it's
was
actually
just-
closer to 40 or so.
Okay, just trying to get an idea where the concentration of them were.
Right.
So if I'm understanding correctly, concentration is here,
Center court.
some here, few here, and few here.
Yes.
Okay, and then CAF.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What's the material of the chandelier? This one here?
It's the
There we go.
yeah.
What is that
That
material?
that is done with hammered plates that are welded. You can see the thickness is 4 inches. So in other words, they'll hammer and forge the shape, weld them together, and the purpose for that is to make sure that we can actually get our wires in there.
So it's not laser cut steel or
No,
okay.
no.
Okay, good. And then how do you plug or cap these bollards when they're not in use?
Well, that's Ed's sort of thing. My idea, it could be completely flawed, is to make the inserts deep enough, say 1/3. If this is 3 feet, to make them at least either another 3 feet, as an example, where they actually pull in without having to use any mechanical means of attaching them, just as long as they're cantilevered out.
Okay, so when they're taken out and they're not there, what goes in their place?
Well, there is a pipe with a cap of the same material of the brick.
It's just a flat cap. Okay.
Flush.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? We'll move to comments. Commissioner Arias, any comments?
Well, I'm very glad that Mr. Lenny did his homework. I also did my homework, and the Grand Mosque in Court of Spain has them, and our own courthouse has a very large star-like fixture, and so they're very prevalent in the area. One suggestion you might consider is if there's concern about the ribbons, you could use Spanish-type colors, such as the brown, the orange, the golden colors, things like that. Could be used as being more Spanish in style. But those are my only comments.
Okay, Commissioner Boucher.
Well, I'm overall very pleased with this. As I say, I still question the idea of using upholstery on the chairs. I like the ribbon things. The maypole is a very ancient symbol, and I don't know if this is intended to be like a maypole, but it certainly suggests one. And I think overall it's going to be a great improvement to the area.
Commissioner Murray.
I too looked at the stars, and then I did also went to the courthouse and looked at it. But I think it's the, and I'm sure you'll do this. It's more the appropriateness to the shape and the size of. So at this point, I don't have any real trouble as long as they're not so large that
Okay.
you walk in and that's the dominant thing. Because I think they need to be well integrated into the project where you can go by and say it's always been there.
Commissioner Levoy.
I think as a whole it's an inspired design, and everything being proposed, if not literally, is conceptually compatible with the guidelines. I particularly like the pot that's actually on the screen right now. It is, it's a beautiful design, and part of a package of beautiful design. I'd compliment the designer and architect.
Commissioner Jury.
Yes, I'd like to also compliment. I love this presentation. Really lovely. I can support the ribbons. I think they should maybe be fairly substantial so that they really move and show color. And it's going to revitalize that whole rather dour walkway going down from Nordstrom, as I understand it's right on in that plaza. I think that those star lamps are really lovely too. The only thing I would say is that I think that of the furniture on page 19, that I love the darker custom wood bench. It seems like it's really simple and clean. But I have a feeling that with the proliferation of all these chairs, they seem a little big. They seem a little large. And I think that Commissioner Boucher is right. You don't want to encourage people just to hang out. You want them to kind of move around and spend money. I don't know if there's an option for somewhat smaller chairs with no cushions so that people can rest their weary shopping feet and then move on. But there's those paseos are not particularly wide. And I think that if you block movement and don't encourage movement, then it's going to be a problem. I think in every other respect, it's really a lovely design.
I will summarize the comments and then look for a motion. Use Spanish colors for the ribbon pole. The upholstery on the lounges is problematic. The ribbon pole is supportable and will be a fun element. Integrate the star pendants in the buttress arcade so that they look like they were always there. the lounge chairs may be too large, TOO, and this is an integrated and inspired design.
Mr. Chair.
I have one question from Commissioner Arias.
It was just a suggestion to consider the Spanish. It wasn't mandatory by any means.
I understand,
Yeah,
and it's a
thank
good
you.
idea, actually.
Yeah, well, it's up to you.
Okay, then how about changing that first comment to study using Spanish colors for the ribbons? Okay. Commissioner Boucher, did you have a question? Same, okay. Study using Spanish colors for the ribbons then. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Is that your question? I'm not following you. You were going to ask a question, and I went to Commissioner Arias first, and then you.
No, I didn't have a question. It was just a comment on the idea of using Spanish colors, whatever.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? Speaking to that item?
Yes, Commissioner Lavoie.
Could I recommend using the saturated colors that appear in the rest of the color palette?
Okay. So revise the first comment. Revise the first comment to say, study using saturated colors in the palette throughout, or excuse me, that is shown in the palette throughout the project. Okay. And then we probably should comment on the stencils. But I suppose if there's no comment on a particular item, it's fine. So I like the stencils. I think the stencils are going to be a nice feature. So the stencils are a welcome feature to the Paseo ceilings. Okay. Now,
A motion for final design approval?
Second.
okay, we had a motion by Lavoie, second by Arias.
That sounded like a combination. We either have preliminary design approval.
He meant
You
to
have
say
final?
Yeah, fine.
He meant to say final
It
approval.
got PDA, so you are saying final approval.
Final.
Okay.
Second was final.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do you understand the motion?
Yes,
Very
thank
well.
you so much.
Judy, did you second that?
I don't remember.
It was Lavoie and Arias.
Yeah. You did.
There you go.
Thanks.
We have Pedregosa, right? Correct. I'm sorry, I don't have the address written down.
I got one. Thank you. Awesome.
31 East Pedregosa. 31 East Pedregosa.
I can't.
This was referred to full board by consent calendar. Thank you. Okay, I understand. They're right behind you.
Behind you.
Oh.
I was wondering, could I have one of those
Well,
books if it's possible?
You did?
Do you remember that the news press wrote an editorial entitled "Kudos to the Council for Getting Rid of You and I"?
Okay.
ADR and Planning Commission, because we had no new ideas.
Somebody has their
You
microphone.
remember that?
Hold on, please.
I still have that editorial.
Now she has it on, right?
Well, I like the story. Yeah, bye.
After the Brown Act, it's coming.
That's all right. It was a history lesson. There was an editorial in the news press entitled "Kudos to the Council for Getting Rid of both Henry Lenny and I because we had no new ideas."
We will continue with the applicant's presentation. If you could actually introduce yourself for the record and give us a brief presentation of what you'd like to do.
Okay, I'm Teresa Patino, part owner of the property. And
Welcome.
thank you. And we're just here because we need to repaint the house. So it's either, repaint it the same color as it is right now. I have pictures of it right here. Or, we thought, well, maybe it would be, try to change it with new colors. So
Okay.
I was here this morning,
and we look at the colors, and there's been, this color, it seems that too dark, right?
Okay.
I would fold this under. This is not a good color.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay.
We're going to bring the color board up in front of the camera, and then 2 or 3 commissioners will take it outside and look at it in the sunlight.
Okay. So
Here are colors that
this
are
is
actually on
this
the
is how it
building,
was in the original.
representing
That's
very closely what she was proposing.
Okay, so for the body, mostly you're proposing this color.
This color.
And that's represented by this here?
Yes.
Okay. Then next is the belly band, or what you might ever call that.
Shingles.
The shingles.
And gables.
All shingles and gables would be this second color.
Yes.
And then next would be
The trim would be in
trim.
this
okay.
color.
And then the window frames, that
yes.
color. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if you'll indulge the commission, we're going to take these colors out to the sunlight.
Okay.
Tom, if you want to take over with anything?
I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No. The photographer told us to get everything wet because sometimes the pictures come better. Yeah. Thanks. It's a nice house. We've been there for 15 years. Yes. Yeah.
I have a little funny old Susan's house. Sorry, did a corn just go outside?
Yeah, they just want to look at them.
Yeah, but
They could do that.
I trust their mics are on.
No, they're probably off.
I'm sure after you. After mine,
After you.
I go back a long ways, and there was that editorial. I have never forgotten it.
Hey.
And at that point in time, I walked out of City Hall, so I never come back and went to university, and I said, it's DNA or the chromosome.
Oh. Yeah.
And here I am back.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any chance of moving this house along to actually be a landmark.
I'd love to have a landmark. We're working on we're working on a historic element for the general plan of buildings, and we're trying to make it user-friendly so that people who have historic buildings can see incentives for declaring them historic. You can avail yourself of the Mills Act, which allows you to get funds for renovation and things like this. So we're trying to get incentives for people
To do it.
declare landmarks.
But then.
That's definitely a landmark.
But then I hear that then, if, for example, if it becomes a landmark, and then let's say that you want to change the color inside of the hallway, that you can't do it?
There's no
Or no? Okay, no?
Actually, only exterior.
It's only,
Oh, it's only for the exterior.
it's only the exterior in I mean, they are
I didn't know
places
that.
where that's true, but not
In
here
residential.
Santa Barbara.
Okay,
It's definitely
okay.
this landmark. Now, Susan showed you.
Let me get your first name real quick.
Teresa Patino.
Patino. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Patino.
She showed you, when she was showing you the colors, she showed you this building right here. This is the Hunt Stambach house.
That's beautiful.
I actually moved that house with Mary Louise Days and Elmer Whitaker and Edwin Gladhill. We moved it from down up to Cornell Street. But the thing is, they've come in and used the Mills Act to redo their kitchen and things like that.
Oh, really?
And they
Wow.
got approval for it, yeah.
Wow. Well, we
Does
just.
it do cut your taxes, I guess?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's also, we're looking at, there are things that make it easier.
To do, because we just redid the kitchen. I mean, we're in the middle of redoing the kitchen. This would have been something nice to have it done.
But seriously, we should consider that, This
Yeah.
took 6 months of my life to move.
Wow. Oh, we are?
We are, well.
Oh. Okay.
But, when that
house rolled off the site because they were going to put a filling station in, I had tears in my eyes. I never thought I would be able to save it. And
Does that get written
I
up?
did. There was a filling
This-
station put there.
Yeah, this is I think this was in the 80s. An architect owned the house, so I just brought the picture just to show the color at the time. Since we're changing the color, I just brought the different stages.
Right. Oh, yeah, but I don't think that was the...
That's not the original color.
No.
This
Let me see that.
this was.
Thank you.
No. I have no idea. They didn't have color photos unless we could find a postcard.
Peterson's
And
office was in
that isn't very accurate either.
No, it's right here. This is where his office
Yeah,
was.
his office was here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I pointed the wrong place. I remember
And-
driving. Is he still alive?
That's a wonderful house.
He was a nice
He moved. Yeah.
really nice
He
person.
he came and he gave us this magazine.
Yeah, he's
So
really nice.
Do you live there?
yeah. Yeah.
My parents used to go to parties there.
Really?
Many years ago.
Yeah. Well, I have 2 kids and we're having so much fun with them. Yeah. There. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that français?
No, I'm from Spain. Oui, moi, je parle français aussi. from Madrid.
Okay, we are back in session, and I believe
Yeah.
Mr. Lavoie, Mr. Sharp have some recommendations.
Okay.
Well, we are all in agreement.
Okay.
And it's very close to what you and I talked about.
Okay.
They felt that the colors are fine, the window color should have a little green to it. to
Yes.
help Lift it up a little out of the black.
Okay.
And this is
Too dark.
too dark.
Mic on.
This is too dark and should be closer to this, but the
Yes.
shingles can be and should be darker than the siding,
Perfect.
which is exactly what you wanted.
Yes. Yes.
And
Okay.
so the trick is to find a color that is a little lighter than this, that is
Yes.
halfway between these two, or more of a subtle difference than quite so jarring. And if I look at the photographs of how it's painted now with that sample, I don't think that this, and I know there's reflection and everything, this isn't as dark as that. This looks pretty good.
Yeah. Well, because I have to tell you, if you would have showed me these colors like this without putting them in the house, I would have just neglected them. But putting them in the house with the sun on them, it changes. It's completely different. And I might agree. This is a little. It's fine. We're okay with making this lighter. That's not a problem.
Okay, great.
That's not a problem.
And not much lighter. It's just a couple of points,
So, like maybe to have, for example, what I was just trying to explain, the painter was explaining to me that you can just use this color and just have it either maybe 25% to 50% darker. It will be still a lot lighter than this one.
Yes.
So you just get this color and you just darken it 25 or 50. That's what he explained to me. So 25, something like that.
That's about what this is, or appears to be.
This is a lot darker than this, even when you go and see
But
it.
it isn't anywhere near as dark as that.
It is.
The shingles are.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yes.
To see in the picture.
It is, but
they seem sour.
it is. When the sun hits it, though, it's different. I mean,
Right.
it doesn't look as dark.
Agreed, and it depends on the sheen
And I
many
have to
other things.
tell you guys, the sun hits this side of the house all the time. I mean, until late in the afternoon.
Any day of the year.
Any day of the year, yes.
Okay,
So-
I think you understand what we're after.
Yeah.
Commissioner Arias, question.
I have a question.
The medallion at the top, Don, what about that?
Well, we
Highlighted?
talked about doing something
No,
to accentuate the medallion, and
I think just paint it this color.
Mm-hmm. That's what
And-
we were
and it'll
thinking.
pop.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking.
And one other suggestion?
Okay, we actually have a question from Commissioner Murray.
And I have not a question, a suggestion.
Oh, Okay, are we done with questions? Okay. Comment from Commissioner Murray.
Yeah, I just want to be sure you're not using the jet water system when you are taking off the old paint or whatever.
It'll destroy your wood.
It's really hard on, it's just hard on historic.
I think
How are they going to remove the old paint? Or are you
I think they're going to sand it. Actually, there is a new law. I'm very well aware of it with lead-based paint. I had the house already tested for lead-based paint. The shingles have lead, so I believe. I mean, I'm not very familiar, but just they have to follow the code on how to do it, so they're going to have to follow that. But I believe they have to put plastic around it. They're going to have to sand with water. Have water and sand, so that it doesn't go up in the environment. I don't think that they're. I mean, we have to follow that law.
Okay.
And
I think it was just a comment.
so,
be careful if you are using high pressure water to strip this building.
Okay.
Commissioner Lavoie, comment?
One recommendation would be in very small areas of detail, like at the front door and doors, is to add a burgundy red.
Yes.
In very small amounts. Will make the whole color scheme just pop.
Burgundy. Okay.
A very deep wine red, just
Burgundy, yes.
Yeah.
That's just a comment, and not just a comment. That is a valid comment, suggestion. I'm going to wrap this up.
Motion for approval with the recommendation that the sage green, the lightest green, be darkened by 25% for the color of the shingles.
I'll second that motion with the.
Let me get this. So recommendation, the lightest green be darkened by 25%. What?
For use on the shingles, where the darker green is now indicated.
Okay.
I'll second the motion. And I can't believe there is an address up here in that little gable.
No, that's the house here. The house was built. The address is 31 Pedregosa.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so we had a motion by Lavoie, a second by Sharp. Under discussion, I wanted to add that in the years that you've lived here, we, as a commission, I particularly have appreciated your stewardship of this home. It's a very important home, and it's treasured by many Santa Barbarans, so I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Consider landmarking?
Maybe
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and
it
all
was,
in favor?
And it was only the one recommendation then.
Correct.
Did you want to include a recommendation about the burgundy?
No, I think
Okay.
It's a suggestion. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming back and working with the full commission on this.
Okay, perfect.
Meeting is adjourned.